Good morning and welcome to our 54th weekly broadcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is this is an AMA, which means ask me anything. You can ask me personal questions, business questions, career questions, and the call never ends until I answer all questions. And if I don't answer your question, I might have skipped it by accident. Please just ask it again. I answer the questions in the order in which I received them. Now, today, what we're going to do is after the call is over, a number of students want to meet up. And so we're all going to meet together 20 minutes after the call is over today. We're going to meet at a place called Paris Baguette, which is in Millbrae, California, about 10 minutes from the San Francisco airport. Again, about 20 minutes or so after this call is done, we'll all meet up, anybody that wants to, today at Paris Baguette. And if you're watching the replay of this call, today means September 5th. So I see there's a lot of questions in the queue. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to talk about one thing. It's really, really easy to publish a book. And I'm going to provide you with a template. All my books I publish using this template I'm going to show you. And you can publish a book for nothing. It's free. I'll teach you how to put it on Amazon for Kindle, as well as for Amazon Audible and Amazon Paper as well. And this is one of my students who just published a book. His name is Philip Germany, and he's on this weekly call every single week. He's great. And Philip, congratulations. And I love everything about this book. Good job. It's fantastic. And so for those of you that want to write a book, it's actually pretty easy to do. All you do is you go here, and I made a template for you. Go to harounventures.com /write book, all lowercase write book. And so if you click here on this template, it's a Microsoft Word document, and it's the entire template for all of my books I publish, meaning the ones that are 6 by 9 inches. And you just fill it in, every single chapter here, and then you right click on the appendix to select update when you have it open in Word. And all you do is you just read the instructions on the first page. And I'm not asking anybody to give me their email address to sign up for this. It's just a free download. I want to humbly help if I can. But I provide you with the links here to Amazon Kindle, as well as a link to CreateSpace, which is how Amazon makes the paper-based version of their books. And then also a link here to ACX, which is audible.com. And it's really, really easy to do this. If you want, you can even pay a couple dollars to somebody at fiverr.com and get a cover of your book made. But congratulations, Philip Germany. I'm very, very happy for you. I'm looking forward to talking to you about this book on the call today. But for everybody in the call, imagine how absolutely impressed people will be if you write a book and you bring it to an interview. I mean, who does that? Who does that? And then you got to ask yourself, how badly do you want that job? How badly do you want that job? Anybody can do this. You can bring it, the book you publish, and show potential sales partners, business partners, etc. You can submit it with your applications to universities as well. Nobody does this. Nobody does this. And this will help you a lot to get a leg up on the competition. And if anybody has any additional questions on how to write a book, it's really easy. Let me know. I'm here to humbly help. And thank you. All right. Philip, if you're on the call, you got to wave, dude. You got to wave. This is awesome. So Philip's book is called Super Students. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So good job, Phil. Awesome. All right. Let me go through the questions here. All right. So the first one we've got is from George. George, how are you? George is saying, good morning. Spot on. I got an EIN, meaning Employee Identification Number, which you need when you register a company in the United States. And you wrote here, you got it. You're locating a business address for $9.94 per month. Awesome. At iPostal. And that's fantastic. And you wrote here, life begins at 80, and congratulations. That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love it. You're starting a business, and we're all going to start many, many companies in our lives. And you only have to be right in business one time. And there's so many successful people that have started companies that failed a bunch of times beforehand. Like Bill Gates, for example, he and the late, great Paul Allen, before they started Microsoft, they started a company called Trafo Data. which counts cars, when you go over those wires on the road. And so if you want to be successful, you got to keep trying and trying and trying again. As Mark Cuban said, you only have to be successful in business one time. All right, hold on a second. All right, so I'm playing around with a couple more camera angles today. I'm getting ready for the MBA Degree Program, which starts this December. And I know we're going to get a lot of questions about the MBA Degree Program. We sent out early admissions, and so if you got accepted, congratulations. If not, or if you're on the waiting list, just be patient, please, because we'd love to get you in at some point. And for anybody that has not applied yet, I know that on our website it still says that you can apply up until I think it's mid-November. I just want you all to know that we're completely full now. We have a waiting list, and the only way to get in if you apply now is if somebody drops off a waiting list. So apologies, but we'll do another round again next year. So for year 2, and so for the year 1 MBAs, we start December 2nd this year. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It'll take about a year to do. And if you don't have enough time to do it, then you can actually do it over a couple of years, as I will be recording the lessons as well. And I'm sure there's a bunch of questions for those of you that got emails from us this past week about the MBA Degree Program. Just go to my website, harounventures.com, and click on the MBA link. And then there's an FAQ. So just go through that, please. And if we don't answer the questions for you here on my website at harounventures.com, again, just click on the MBA Degree Program here, and then go to requirements, FAQ. Just go to FAQs, actually. Read through these. If you still have questions, let us know today, please. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for your interest. We got way more applications than I thought we would. So that's a good thing. It'll be fun. And there's that money back guarantee as well. I'm putting my reputation on the line. All right, next up, we've got Rohit, who's saying finance is the gun and politics is knowing when to pull the trigger. Oh, interesting. So does that mean that finance plus politics equals business? Ooh. I mean, I don't think that every business is a finance company. Maybe there are some elements of finance in a lot of companies. And I think politics is more prevalent in very, very large, older companies where the founders are no longer around, especially in the tech sector. When the founders all leave and aren't even advising, then it becomes a political behemoth. And I know what you mean with politics and business. I get it. But if it's a big company, and to make it to CEO of a big company, you have to be obviously very smart, well-rounded, but also great at sales. And any partner in a law firm or an investment bank or any CEO, they're great salespeople. And the same thing with politicians. They're great salespeople as well. What kills me about big business in general is if the companies get too big. And if they get too big, then they become very political. And unfortunately, a lot of times people get promoted based on who they know and not based on how well they do their job. And so, yes, big companies can be extraordinarily political if they're not managed correctly. But I also think that big companies can be very successful if they operate like a startup. And Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and it's a tough culture working there, but they're successful. And Bezos doesn't let any meeting to ever take place that requires more than 2 pizzas to feed people in the room. Because we all know, having all been in group projects at school or work, etc., that if there's too many people in a meeting or a group, it's just chaos. Nothing gets done. And that's why the whole Silicon Valley model seems to work extraordinarily well, because 2 gals or 2 guys in a garage can start a company and change the world. So I think that politics really sets in very, very large companies if they're not managed properly. And especially if they're big monopolies as well, because there's no incentive for them to innovate and to change and to be competitive. That's a great quote, though. Thanks for that, Rohit. And Big Yan is saying, hi, Chris. Good morning. Good morning to you as well. Next up, we've got Kunal saying, good morning, Chris. Likewise. Okay, the question here is, how can we appropriately value commercial banks? And which method makes sense on valuing banks, as DCF does not make sense because of its nature? So there's a couple ways to do it. My favorite way is always price earnings, and that goes with every type of company out there. So I love to model 5-10 years out and figure out what earnings are going to be in 5 or 10 years. And my price earnings multiple for my target price is always based on earnings in 5 or 10 years. And that way you can kind of, not be a tourist in a stock. You don't rent it. You don't panic when it goes down. You're a long-term shareholder. And when it does go down and people panic, you want it to go down initially when you're starting to build your position because you want to buy more. You want to back up the truck. And one of the best analysts ever worked for me, Jason at my hedge fund, he said, Chris, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. And so if you use price earnings multiples with your financial modeling, and you set your P multiple target price in 5 or 10 years, you'll be like a pit bull on a pork chop. You'll never want to sell that stock. And people might tell you, oh my gosh, that stock is so expensive at 100 times earnings this year, 100 times earnings next year. And you can tell yourself, I don't care because it's actually only 5 times my earnings estimate in 5 years or 10 years. And that's how I've been able to invest in a lot of technology companies that are publicly traded for decades now. I've always valued companies based on my earnings expectations in 5 or 10 years. And one of the biggest widow makers for, it's a bad term, sorry, but for new hedge fund analysts is they all want to short Amazon and the very expensive stocks without really understanding the long-term earnings power of those companies. So when it comes to banks and any sector for that matter, I think that valuing companies on an earnings basis longer term makes sense. And I do think DCF, and I've beaten it up in a lot of my courses because there's a lot of independent variables, but I think DCF can make sense if you're valuing a company out 5, 10, 15 years or so. And for those of you not familiar with DCF, it stands for discounted cash flow. And basically the value of any company is the value of all the future cash they're going to make discounted with an interest rate into today's terms. So if you have follow-up questions about that, please let me know. Thank you. All right. All right, next up is Cornell saying, I've sent you the email applying for the scholarship for your MBA program. So when can I expect to receive the reply whether I'll be getting the scholarship or not? So we actually have a web page going up shortly, and I'll give it to you. Wrigley, who works with me, sorry about this, Wrigley said he's going to put it up at some point today. I'll give you all the address today, though. So it's going to be as follows, all lowercase. harounventures.com/MBA-scholarship. Okay, so again, MBA-scholarship, all lowercase. And there's going to be a limited number of scholarships. We're going to do whatever we can to accommodate you. If you sent me an email about it, I am a little bit behind on my emails. The best way to always reach me is during this call or on my website in the MBA section there. You can submit a form. Or you can email admissions@harounventures.com. And for anybody that's reached out to me over LinkedIn or other message sources, and I got a lot of texts even and WhatsApps, if I haven't responded, I'm so sorry. I'm just really, really inundated. But I will respond to you live on this weekly call, and that's one of the reasons I have this call. Okay, next up is Keel saying, hello, sir. Please say hello, Chris. How are you, buddy? Always great to have you on the call. You ask great questions. All right, next up, we've got Kunal who's saying, did you watch the debate between Elon Musk and Jack Ma that was held in Shanghai at the AI conference? I did not, but I'm going to bookmark that and check it out. I love debates between people in the tech sector. One of my favorite ones was between Peter Thiel and Eric Schmidt, who's the former CEO of Google. Check it out if you can. It was fascinating. It's fascinating. All right, this shadow's driving me nuts here. And Phil, if you're on the call, let me know, man. And congratulations on this book. And as I was reading through it, and I did skim it, I love the quotes you put here on Steve Jobs, Robert Frost, and also the dedication as well. It's fantastic. I love it. Thank you, and congrats again. All right. Next up is Big N is saying, which valuation measures make sense to value banks based on comparable company analysis? Yeah, and I mentioned that earlier with respect to longer term building out a DCF, discounted cash flow model, as well as a price earnings based target price. And what I usually do is I use 3 different methodologies for a lot of companies. Some I don't, but some I do. So for tech companies, I use 3 valuation methodologies: price earnings, price to revenue, as well as DCF. And one of these is going to be way off. And that's why I like to have target prices based on 3 different valuation methodologies, so I can take a blended average. And when investment bankers and people that work in equity capital markets at investment banks, when they create the 20-page sales memo for an IPO, what they do is they actually value the company using several different valuation methodologies as well. And they provide that 20-page write-up for the sales force on the trading floors at the big investment banks. So when they call their institutional investors, who might be value investors on one end of the spectrum or growth investors on the other end of the spectrum, they're able to discuss different valuation methodologies. And also there's a blended average they can use of all 3 as they triangulate it, just in case, again, one of the target prices is way off. And for more details on that, you can take my course called Introduction to Finance, Accounting, Modeling, and Valuation. It's 4.5 hours. Or if you want to learn a lot about institutional finance and professional financial analysis and all that good stuff, you can take a course of mine called The Complete Financial Analyst Training and Investing Course. And lastly, if all you're interested in is personal finance and you want to create a diversified portfolio for yourself or your family, consisting of stocks, bonds, real estate, and commodities, then you can take my Complete Personal Finance course. All right. Next up is Akil saying, thanks a lot for accepting me for the MBA course. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. And you wrote, can I write the email regarding scholarship for the MBA course? Yeah, and I answered that earlier in the call today. You can go to that web address, and let me see if Wrigley has got it up yet. And Wrigley, if you're on right now, brother, I'm so sorry for putting you on the spot here. I know you said you were going to put it up later today, but it'll look something like this. So you'll go to Haroun Education Ventures / all lowercase MBA scholarship. Single, not plural, single. MBA scholarship. Oh, here it is here. Okay, great. Wrigley is so amazing. Wow. It's amazing. And since I've been working with Wrigley since day one, he doesn't have a job. He has a passion. It's amazing. It's incredible. So thank you, Wrigley, for that. So just fill out this form here and just write a 250 to 500 word essay on why you need the scholarship. And then there are a limited number. But if you applied and you need a scholarship or financial aid, then of course, fill this out, please. Thank you. And thanks for doing that, Wrigley. You rock. All right. Let's mix it up a bit. Got my Michael Jordan quote over there. And if anybody can tell me, skill testing question, I don't know if you can see it. If anybody can tell me who this painter is, let me know. He's got a lot of great quotes. I guess you can't see it that far away. He's got a lot of great quotes. And my favorite quote of his is when he said, everything you can imagine is real. Okay, moving on. The question is, can you explain what does it mean by ideas are commodities, but execution is not? So basically, when you invest in a company, you're not investing in ideas, right? If you want to do extraordinarily well and make a lot longer term, you're investing in people. It pains me when I hear people say, "Oh, I can't believe that Pinterest business model. I had that idea years ago. I wish I had started that company." It's easier said than done. And of course, I believe anybody can start any company with enough hard work, as long as you're willing to fail a couple times. But it all comes down to the people. In horse racing, there's a famous saying, which is the jockey, meaning the dude that rides a horse, the jockey is more important than the horse. And so I love investing in great management teams. Whenever I analyze a company, I look at the management team first. And I would always rather invest in an A management team with a B business model instead of investing in a B management team with an A business model. You always want to invest in people. That's what a company is. It's all about people. And I really do believe that ideas are commodities, but execution is not. And that's a famous quote from Mark Cuban, and he's right. He's right. You always want to invest in people. When I used to work full-time in venture capital, we used to look at the entrepreneur closely. And even if we didn't fully agree with the business model, we would still potentially back that entrepreneur because she or he got us excited about their product or service. And when we're interviewing them to potentially invest in their company, when I worked in venture capital, we know we're investing in people, and we know that their business model is going to materially change in the long run. Can they adapt? And can they get people excited about their business? Because you're a salesperson if you're an entrepreneur. That's what you are. And can you get me excited as a potential customer? I think of myself as a customer whenever I meet with startups as well. I don't just think of myself as an investor. I think of myself as a customer. Am I excited about this product? Does this person get that little feeling in my belly where I get really, really excited and want to invest or want to buy that product? And so the bottom line is you always invest in people first and ideas second. Always, always, always. And as you're reviewing companies and doing your own research, read through the annual report, and there's always a section on management. And you can check out who the management team is and what their background is. And you can even go to a website called glassdoor.com, and let's go there together. I love it when when employees write great things about CEOs or the management in general. And for anybody that's about to work at a company and you want to know what salary you might make, or you want to know what the culture is like, you can go to glassdoor.com. Now, not all companies are on glassdoor.com, but what I love about the internet, like this website, Yelp, etc., is that what happens is there's global transparency. And so you can compare salaries in terms of what you might make in an industry or a similar company to yours, or the actual company you're about to work at. Or what you can do is you can do research on companies as well. They just changed around this website. Anyway, you can search for the company if you want in here, and you can actually just sign up as well if you want to. It's killing me though. I want to show you a little demo of this. Okay, here we go. Let's go to jobs. Let's go to graphic designer jobs here. Okay. And yeah, you can read about this company here, for example, the rating of this company, 100% approve of the CEO. There's got to be a lot of data points though, because one or two data points do not make a definitive trend. You can actually read reviews as well on the management team. And this is a company I've never heard of, but it's the first one I clicked on here. Let me close that there. So the pros and cons of working as a marketing manager, for example, in this company. The cons are if you hate free food once in a while, then I guess that's a con. Okay. That might have been an inside job, or it's just a great place to work at. But there's tons of reviews you can read on this company or any company. And I recommend signing up for this as well. And if I was looking for a job and I was doing due diligence, I'd probably pay the monthly service on this as well. And I wouldn't use my real name, or I'd use just another email account or my nickname. You know what I'm getting at, just in case you work for somebody else. But check it out. Check it out. You got the pros and the cons of all companies, or many companies at least, benefits, photos, that sort of thing. And just a little side note, a lot of people ask me, Chris, what should I wear for my interview? Well, the best way to know is just go to that company's website and just look at pictures, see what people are wearing, or go to the LinkedIn profile of the people you're going to be interviewing with and see what they're wearing. You don't want to wear a tie to a really laid back culture. Otherwise, people, think you might not fit in potentially, and vice versa as well. All right. All right, next up is which investors would you recommend when raising capital for your startup, growth or value? And how do I know that a particular investor is growth or value based? Yeah, that's a great question. So for those of you not familiar with growth or value, there's two types of investors. There's value investors, which are investors like Warren Buffett that like to buy stocks that are cheap, but usually not growing that fast. Then there's growth investors, which I am actually a growth investor. And a growth investor is somebody that wants to buy stocks that are growing very, very, very fast, but are expensive today, because we don't want them to cut expenses, meaning letting salespeople go or not hiring as many engineers, because we want them to grow today. And that's why I value companies based on my earnings expectations in 5 or 10 years. And so when I was younger, and for a lot of students actually in universities, you start out as a value investor because that's what you're taught in university. You want to buy stocks that are cheap. And then eventually, sometimes you morph into a growth investor longer term. It's just the way it works once you realize that buying cheap stocks doesn't always work, because sometimes they're cheap for a reason. And so I personally am a growth investor. Venture capitalists are all growth investors. And it just depends on what your preference is, and you can change over time. But it really gets contentious. But it's like politics between growth investors and value investors. They don't see eye to eye quite often. And so the way to know if the person you're meeting with is a growth or a value investor is if they have a portfolio, or if they're a venture capital firm or a mutual fund. You can always look at the portfolio stocks that they own. If they're big, they have to publicly disclose it as well. That might help. Or you can just feel them out when you meet with them. And so I always recommend not getting banks to loan you money, because banks are chicken, and if you're a day or two late, they can take everything. I recommend networking a lot. And this is a free download you can get from my website, harounventures.com. But I recommend networking and meeting people, that might have similar backgrounds. And the hook can be something like this. I can send somebody a LinkedIn message and say, I see that you're also from Mississauga, like I am. You also went to McGill, which is where I went. And you also live here in the Bay Area. Please let me know if you have time for a coffee. Thanks, Chris. And I teach you just a lot more in-depth tricks and whatnot on how to network and meet people. And Akil, when you meet with them, you can kind of feel them out. If they're a growth investor or a value investor, you can actually even ask. You can ask. And you never want to raise money. If you're a growth company, meaning you're a startup and you're not going to have earnings for years, you never want to raise money from people that are value investors, because at some point there's going to be a misunderstanding, and they might be on your board, and they might push you to materially increase profitability today, which will hurt your company in the long run, because if you cut costs, you can't spend as much on salespeople or engineers, that sort of thing. And you always want to get lawyers involved as well. So before you take any money from any investor, you want your lawyer and their lawyer as well to create all the documents as well. And within that documentation, there should be language written by your lawyer, not by me, which mentions the risks. You always want to disclose all risks, always, 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 because if that company that you start doesn't work out, at least you disclose the risks. And most people that are successful in business have failed a couple times beforehand. And I've done well, but I've failed as well. And there's a very high net worth family here in the Bay Area that invested in one of my companies many, many years ago that I started, and they didn't really make any money. And then they invested me again in another company, and they made a lot of money. And I remember when I met with them, I was like, well, first of all, I was shocked they said yes. But I asked them why, thank you, God bless you. I appreciate this for your vote of confidence. I've got to know, why are you investing in me again? And the answer always, and this has happened a couple of times, comes down to, Chris, well, we trust you. You disclosed all the risks. And I think that great investors invest in people first, and ideas second. And as Warren Buffett said, it takes 30 years to build up a great reputation and 30 seconds to ruin it, even less than that with social media. I can mention one little off-the-cuff statement here, God forbid, and ruin my life. But all you have in this world, from a business perspective, is your reputation. You might work for a couple different companies or many different companies, and the only thing that comes with you from company to company to company is your reputation. All right. And then you're asking about treasury shares. So that means basically when a company buys back shares. Okay, it goes into equity for them. Yeah. All right. Rohit is saying, will there be a guest lecture by Gus Hunt? In the new MBA? Yes. I haven't asked him, but yes. I'm gonna make that happen. And I love throwing down a challenge and committing to things before I can actually get them done. It's just the way I roll. Like a lot of companies I've started, I've looked over the edge of a cliff and I've thrown a bunch of airplane parts off and I've jumped off the cliff and I try to assemble the airplane before it hits the ground. That's just a metaphor, obviously, but I love throwing down a challenge. And for all of you as well, I want you to throw down a challenge and tell people you're going to write a book. It's life-changing when you write a book. It costs you nothing. Anybody can do it. And Phil Germany, who I hope is on the call today, wrote this book called Super Students, and he's one of my super students. So anyway, I think everybody should write a book if you possibly can. All right. And that was part of the whole throwing down a challenge thing. But yes, I will get Gus Hunt. Oh, and for those of you not familiar with Gus Hunt, Gus, he was the, let me see if I can go here. He's a buddy of mine. I was actually his reference for his job. He's now at Accenture. He's managing director in charge of innovation. But let's go and look up his profile here. He used to be the CTO of the CIA. And when I worked in venture capital, I flew out to meet with him and asked him to join us as an advisor. And he said yes. I was shocked he said yes. And the CIA is very, very important in venture capital because they actually invest in a lot of the best tech startups, like Palantir, which is the largest employer in Palo Alto now. And so the CIA invested in that fund. The government's very active in venture capital. A lot of people don't know that. So let's go here to Gus Hunt. Here he is. Yeah, he's still managing director at Accenture. I used to work there too. Great guy. Yeah, but he used to work. Yeah, he was right here. He was the chief technology officer of the CIA. Great guy as well, and he thoroughly understands technology. And it says here, Washington D.C. metro area. I'm based here, as you all know, in the San Francisco Bay Area. But Accenture has a very big presence, obviously, here in the Valley. And what I'll do is, if he's here working at the Accenture office, I'll bring my equipment down. And yes, I will interview him. And Rohit, whatever questions you have for him, let me know that day. And he'll answer the questions when I go down there and film that interview, or I'll ask him to come here into my studio, and we can do a live interview here. And I want to do a lot of interviews here in my studio. I wish I had a couple more cameras set up. I don't now. I will for next week. But I've actually got the same equipment that Dan Rather has up here for a slider for B-roll. And I've set this up this entire office. Here studio so that I can be changed in an instant. I've got several different paper rolls here that are staggered in case I have a set there and I want to pull down the paper roll, green screen, whatever it is. But this room here is made to teach business. You know, whether it's on Udemy or the MBA Degree Program or this weekly call. And I've certainly nerded out and had a lot of fun doing this. And I just want to keep pushing the goalpost out. So that was a very long answer. Yes. Chris, you always say less is more. Why do you talk so much? All right. Next up, Akil is saying, is there a difference between a share and a stock, or there's just synonyms? Yeah, it's the same thing. When people say I own shares in a company or I own stock in a company, it's the same thing. All right. Akil is saying, can you explain more in detail about pro-rata? Is it only applied to the A round of investors? Yeah. So basically, and this kind of touches upon dilution. And if you're interested in learning a lot more about this, I created a case study on pro-rata and dilution in my course on Udemy called An Entire MBA in One Course. And what can happen is you can get diluted if you invest in a startup and they raise more money later. And a lot of times people don't care if they get diluted because usually they get diluted at a much higher valuation. For example, let's say that a company raises $100 from Sequoia and there's 100 shares. And the value of that company, let's say, is $100, just to keep it simple. And then let's say that somebody else wants to invest in the company and value it at $1,000. and the company issues a couple more shares for that. Well, yes, you're going to own less of the company as a percent, but the value of each share of yours is going to be much, much higher. Yeah. And when it comes to dilution and pro rata in general, you got to get the lawyers to document all that stuff, especially when it comes to option grants and option dilutions in the paperwork. And so the way it works, I'm not a lawyer, but the way it works is when you want somebody to invest in your company, you get them to sign initially what's called a term sheet. And your lawyer creates it, and it's like a 10 or 15 page simple document, and it's non-binding. You sign it, but it's non-binding in most cases. And all it does, it basically tells you the terms. That's why it's called a term sheet. And if you agree on it and the investor agrees upon it, then you get your lawyers and their lawyers, but mainly your lawyers, to draft up a lot of documents, offering memorandum and all that other stuff, so that the investor knows what they're getting themselves into. They know the risks. They know what their ownership is going to be or currently will be. They know about dilution. It's documented in in the legal documents as well. And if you have additional questions about that, please let me know. But what you can also do, if anybody is curious about term sheets and how to create them, I mean, I recommend getting a lawyer to create them. But what you can do is there's an amazing law firm I've dealt with here in the Bay Area called Wilson Sonsini, and let's go there together. And there's a term sheet generator on Wilson Sonsini's website. And basically what that means is you enter in a bunch of information. It's easy to do. And a term sheet will be created for you. And then you get a lawyer to review it, of course. And it also explains a lot of the complicated things like dilution and what types of shares. So let's go there together. So let's go. It's WSGR.com is the website. Term sheet generator. Here it is here. Yeah, so WSGR, it's Wilson Sonsini. And then you go here and you click launch. And I don't know why that's saying that. Hold on a second. Let me try it again. All right, should be working. And I do trust this company because I've used them before. I agree. It's something I didn't read. There we go. Let's go advanced. Proceed to the WSGR website. Yeah, I don't know why that if anybody's watching from SGR, you guys got to fix this. Looks like they're having an issue with it now, which bums me out because I want to do a live review of this. But try it out again. If you get a chance, just click the launch button. And then what you can do is as you go through and answer the questions in this, I think it's like 48 or 49 steps. If you don't understand something, there's a little eye with a circle around it, information, and you can click it and it'll explain what that term means. But I'm kind of bummed this isn't working. I got to try one more thing. Let me go to Safari. I doubt, pardon me, I doubt it's a Safari issue, but let's try it out anyway for fun. All right, so WSGR term sheet generator. I did it without the .com in Google there at the top, see if it matters. Let's go here, launch. Okay. Show details, view the certificate. Hold on a second. Go to this website. Oh, goodness. All right. They're having issues with it, but it should work in general. So maybe try it again in a day or two, and they'll potentially have fixed that bug. But I've used it a lot. I've taught using it. I've had a top partner at Wilson Sonsini, who's also a McGill University graduate, come and guest lecture in one of my classes as well. And that's how I know about this. It's a great resource. So check it out when you get a chance. Thanks. All right. All right. So, and by the way, Akil, you wrote A-round investors in dilution. It applies to every investor, and even if if you're an early stage investor, you're going to own a big percent of the company, but you'll own very small amounts by the time the company goes public, if it goes public. And a lot of CEOs, or a lot of founders, I should say, they start out owning 100% of their company, and by the time the company goes public, they own less than 20%. But they're cool with owning less than 20% because what happens is the value of each share goes up materially. And so, yeah, they only own 20% of the company now, but it's obviously a much bigger company. All right. All right, so next question is, and by the way, I got this little Ember mug. I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing, But what you can do is you can actually control the temperature of your coffee. And it's a bit pricey, but I had to get something like this because you can hear my voice sometimes. My voice sometimes doesn't work as well as it should. And if I got hot coffee, a beverage that's like 145 degrees, it hopefully will remedy that. Not sure if I buy it yet, but we'll see. All right, next up is, what is the first task you complete when you start your day? So the first thing I do is I always thank God for 10 things in this order. Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, those are my kids, Christine, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sister, Katie, my sister, Elizabeth, and my students, you. That's what I do. And so I practice gratitude before I get out of bed every single day, every day. And it gets me in a peak mental state. If you practice gratitude daily and you focus on the positives and how lucky you are, then you'll be more productive that day because this will work and this will be happy as well. They've got to be in unison, always, always, always. And the cancer of Wall Street, and I was a victim of this too, is we all compare ourselves to those that have more. And it was the Dalai Lama. He wrote this great book you got to read called The Art of Happiness. And the Dalai Lama said the problem with Western society is that we sacrifice our health, our entire lives in order to make money. And then at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money in order to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with. And I remember when I was on Wall Street, every Christmas bonus season, we would always, not be as happy as we should have been because we compared ourselves to those that made more. It's partially because, people are competitive and I'm competitive as well. But also it's a flaw. It's a flaw most people have. And I had it for years until I realized that you can't compare yourself to those that have more. Otherwise you'll never be happy. How many yachts can you water ski behind, to quote Oliver Stone from the movie Wall Street. And a lot of people that are very successful, later in life, they end up breaking the rules and they go to jail because they pulled a lot of strings and they did a lot of shady deals and they finally got caught later on. They say when it comes to marriage, once a cheater, always a cheater. And the same thing in business as well. If somebody has screwed you over or somebody else over and done unethical things in the past, they should be cut off. It's like 1 or 2 strikes, you're out, just the way it should work. So for me, I practice gratitude. It makes me much happier and much more productive. And when I'm happy, when everyone's happy, we are all much more productive. Okay. Next one is Akil saying, when you buy a stock, what parameters and elements do you look for? Like the price earnings ratio, the book value, the market cap, etc. What elements do you look for? What should they be? So we're all different, and it depends on if you're a value investor or a growth investor. Meaning, if you're a value investor, you like to buy cheap stocks that aren't growing fast. If you're a growth investor, you like to buy expensive stocks that are growing very, very fast. And you're cool with them being expensive because one day in the future, earnings will be high once they cut expenses years from now when they're not growing as much. And so if you're a value investor, you look at price to book. Which means if you liquidate this company, how much money would you get back? And the magic number is a price to book ratio of 1 or less. If a company is trading at a price to book below 1, then that company, if it's dismantled and all the parts are sold, you get back more money than the value of that company. But you got to always look for, why is it cheap? Is it cheap for a reason? Are there going concern or bankruptcy issues or competitive issues on the horizon? That's why I love to model out companies longer term and not just look at this year's earnings. Value investors also like to look at DCF, discounted cash flow, and price earnings. Growth investors look at price earnings ratio. They look at a PEG ratio as well, which is price earnings divided by growth. They also love to look at price to revenue multiples if that company is not yet profitable, and EBITDA multiples as well. And sometimes DCF, but usually not. But both value investors and growth investors do look at price earnings. That's the one thing they definitely have in common. It's just the value investors look at the PE ratio today, and the growth investors look at the PE ratio many years into the future. All right, Amar is saying, hello, Mr. Chris. How are you? How are you? I'm planning to be an online instructor on Udemy. Awesome. What is your suggestion for that? And is Udemy the best way for that, or another website or YouTube? So I've said this before, Udemy is Google and everyone else is Bing. And I never get compensated to say this stuff, whatever. The way Udemy works is it's an algorithm anyway when people search to take courses. But Udemy is an 800-pound giant in the sector. And usually in technology, it's one or two companies that dominate and everybody else is less relevant. So in search, we all use Google or Bing if you work for Microsoft. So sorry. With commerce, me at least here in North America, I just use Amazon mainly. You might use Alibaba if you're in other parts of the world. And so Udemy is Google and everyone else is Bing. They are the largest educational marketplace in the world by a factor of like a gazillion. It's kind of like eBay. Sometimes I'll use eBay to sell stuff. It's an auction website. We all know that. What's another auction website I use? I can't even name it. And so the best way to get started teaching on Udemy is to take a couple of my courses for free. So I published a couple courses based on mistakes that I've made, so you can all work smarter and not harder when you make your courses. And so one of them is called, and you can just search Udemy and then my name in Google, and this will come up. The first one I did was called 40 Tips on Making a Great Online Course, which is based, and it's free, based on mistakes I've made, 40 mistakes I've made teaching online. And it's closed captioned, and I made it in all major languages, or 10 big languages, and they're all free as well. And after you finish that one, what you can do next is you can take another course of mine, let's go back here, called Another 40 Tips on Making a Great Online Course. And this one's about 4 hours, and it's based on 40 more tips, things I've learned. And I've learned a lot about teaching since I started a couple of years ago. It's never been a job for me. It's always been a passion. And if you have questions about how to set up the equipment in your house, and you don't have to have expensive equipment, anybody can do this. But if you have questions about it, let me know. I want to humbly help you. And in my MBA degree program, I'm also going to teach you how to use technology equipment, expensive and cheap equipment as well, so you can set up a great looking backdrop for yourself for teaching, but also for Skype interviews. A lot of people don't realize that in the future, most meetings will take place online. It is what it is, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And if you can set up a great quality background, and this, by the way, is back here. This is just I just got this from a hardware store. These are cardboard panels that I screwed into the wall. Anybody can do this. But if you have questions about how to set up equipment and whatnot to teach on Udemy, or just for your house in case you want to do business online or conduct meetings online, let me know on this call. This is why I'm here. And I've got a course coming out with a brilliant man named Steve Washer. And Steve is probably the number one authority on the planet for green screens. And we're making a course that's coming out actually later this month, or probably right at the very beginning of October. And it's called Video Production Masterclass, the complete video course. And I teach you everything on how to create a studio, how to get any type of microphone to work, how to get any type of camera to work from scratch. I explain all those complicated stuff that used to confuse me, like ISO, shutter speed, aperture, etc., from scratch in a fun way too. It was really fun for me to make that course, and I can't wait to hear what you all think of it. If you've signed up for my MBA degree program and you've been accepted, you will get that course for free as part of the MBA degree program. And a little side note here, if you've been accepted to my MBA degree program, if you've taken my courses on Udemy, if you send me the certificate of completion, email it to admissions@harounventures.com. If you send me those, I'll knock off $10 for every course you submitted and completed. So if you've completed 27 of my courses, 27 times 10 is $270. Then the MBA degree program is not $499. It's $499 less $270. You get 54% off. Yeah, no, I think Udemy is the only place to really teach online. And I've put my stuff on other platforms as well. And it doesn't really materialize as much. And I've stopped doing that as well. I've stopped. I'm kind of exclusive to Udemy now, just because Udemy is Google and everyone else is Bing. And if you start teaching online and you get calls or messages, and I get them every single day from other edtech platforms around the world, I want you to ask them, 2 questions. Number 1, how many unique subscribers do you have? And number 2, how much money did the 3rd, 4th, and 5th person make on that platform over the past 12 months? And a lot of times they don't answer, or they give you a very, very low number. When you're in a hurry and you want to search for something, use Google, use nothing else. And that's how I feel about Udemy versus the competition as well. All right. Hold on a second. Okay. And for anybody that creates a Udemy course, if you want to get real-time feedback from me humbly on how to improve it, I can actually do a course review with you live on the air here, if you want, or I can help you live on the air here, make your studio better by having you tweak certain variables. And let me show you. I've got to nerd out for 1 second here. I'm so sorry. Hold on a second. I want to show you how I do things here. So the way I control cameras, and you can do it wirelessly if you want to, you don't have to, is I actually log on to my cameras remotely. So let's go up here, and I'm connected there to this camera. And let's take a look at this in the browser here. Let me make sure I'm still live. Good. I've got Ethernet plugged in my network here, and then I'm using Wi-Fi to access this camera here. And so this is what I see right now. Let me make that a little bit bigger so it's easier for you guys all to read. Okay. So I can change the exposure or the f-stops here if I want to. I can change the ISO. It's currently at 500. I can crank it up, which will let in way too much light, and I'll be grainy. It won't work out well for me. And all these levers are actually a lot easier to understand than you think. You can change the white balance, the exposure, etc. And if anybody has questions on how to do any of this stuff, please let me know. Please let me know, because I want to humbly help if I possibly can to help you become better at setting up your studio at home. And you don't need to have a high-end camera to do it. You can even use an iPhone if you want to. All right. And if anybody has additional questions on that, please let me know. Thanks. Okay. And if you're just getting started, you can use a Blue Yeti microphone. I've got a lot of equipment here I can show you if you want. I don't want to go off track unless people ask me about it, but I can show you all the equipment to use and how to configure it, so you can set up a studio at your house as well, or just have a wall in the background. And I used to do it actually in my bedroom with blankets on the wall to get rid of the echo, that sort of thing. So I MacGyvered it, but if anybody has questions on how to do any of this stuff, just let me know, and thank you as always. All right. Anybody get this? I guess I have to catch up in the questions here. And by the way, for those of you doing the MBA degree program, we're going to have a process set up so that you can ask questions live. Okay, not this delay, me catching up with all the questions. All right. Next one, we've got Rohit is saying good morning. Good morning to you as well. Another good morning. And then we've got Andrew Dupree from Toronto. Andrew, how are you? And I met with Andrew actually at University of Toronto at the Arundel branch in Mississauga a couple of weeks ago when I was there. It was great to meet you. And for those of you that are here in the San Francisco Bay Area, today after the call, and today, in case you're watching the replay, today's September 5th. After today's call, about 20 minutes after we conclude it, I'm going to go to meet with a lot of my students at a place called Paris Baguette in a city called Millbrae, which is close to the San Francisco airport. So 20 minutes after this call, I'll go down there and we can meet up and grab a coffee if anybody wants to. All right. Andrew is saying, hello, Chris. Shrinking at Goldman Sachs sounds personal away from the Wall Street Journal article. I saw that article too. So basically it was an editorial piece in the Wall Street Journal that said that a lot of Goldman Sachs partners are retiring and that the Golden brand might be losing its luster and whatnot. I don't really know much about that. I do have friends that are partners that have left. And they've all left on good terms just to do their own thing. You know, they've done incredibly well. They've made a lot of money, whatever. And now they want to, give back or work in politics. You know, it's amazing how many politicians came out of Goldman Sachs. And when I was working there, and I hate to say this, but I understand why so many politicians came out of that place because, and that's not a negative. That's not a negative. Well, you can interpret it as negative if you want to. Because politicians, just like partners or founders of companies, are great salespeople. And a lot of times people want to leave Goldman just because they've already made enough money and they want to do something different. Yeah. Okay. And Jason is saying, good day, Chris. Good day, Jason. Jason is in Australia. Happy to have you join us. Thank you. And by the way, for those of you that have been accepted to my MBA degree program, what we're going to do is we will send out a Survey Monkey form to all of you at some point, and we'll ask you what time zone works best for you in terms of me teaching so that you don't have to watch all the replays. But there will be replays in case you miss a class, yeah. And you can complete the degree in 1 year if you want to, or multiple years if you want to. And I'll have more details on that shortly. And if anybody has additional questions on the MBA program, you can go to my website and just go to the FAQ section on the MBA degree. And if I didn't answer the question there, ask me now. All right. So Adish is saying, good morning, Chris. Enjoying your city. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to you too. And then Kurt has got a question. Give me 1 second to get some coffee. It's keeping it hot, actually. It's not bad. 145 degrees is where I like to keep it, around that level, just so my throat works better, whatever. Not convinced this product is great yet. Still working on it. And the problem with this thing is it's ridiculous. You can't put it in the dishwasher, just the top part. So you got to clean it by hand, which takes too long. Don't buy it. All right, next up is Kurt, who's saying, hi, Chris. Hey. How do you know when to move on from a stock due to controversy in the news? Example include Facebook privacy and many other examples. That's a great question. So what I recommend doing, and I teach about this in my complete financial analyst course, what I recommend doing is before you buy a stock, make a one-page write-up. And I teach you how to do that, and I provide you with all the templates in that course. And on that one-page write-up, you cover concepts like, what is the catalyst, meaning why are you there? What events are going to occur in the future that will make more people want to buy the stock? You always want to buy stocks that people are going to like in the future, not stocks that people like today. And that's why Wayne Gretzky, a fellow Canadian, was very successful. He said, I never skate to where the puck is. I always skate to where the puck is going to be. And using that logic, you want to invest in companies that people are going to like. And so when you make that one-page template write-up, which I provide you in the course, you answer a lot of questions about the fundamentals, the valuation, and a little bit about the technicals, but not too much. Okay, and the technicals just help you understand when to trim around a position or when to back up the truck and what the support level can be. And the reason we look at technicals sometimes is because I love to look at risk reward, meaning how much upside do I have to my target price? What is the downside, which could be a technical level? And hopefully it's positively skewed. Otherwise, I don't buy the stock. And so after you complete that one pager, which is pretty thorough, then what I want you to do is buy the stock. And if you write that one pager and you're halfway through and you convince yourself this is not a good investment, then just junk it. Move on to another stock. There's a gazillion other stocks to potentially invest in. I've made hundreds of these write-ups, hundreds, that I've written the whole thing, but even more where I gave up halfway through. And then what you do is this. Let's say 2 years in the future, you own the stock and you completed the one pager and you haven't looked at it in a while. And a new piece of news comes out on that stock and people are panicking. And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, should I sell? What I want you to do is this. It's a great sanity test. I want you to go back and read that one pager you made and think of yourself being back in time when you made that one pager. Read it thoroughly and then ask yourself this question. If I had known about this new piece of information that's out there today in the market, if I had known about that when I was writing this one pager, would I still have bought the stock? And if the answer is no, then sell it. All right. Oh, cool. Kurt's coming to Paris Baguette today. Awesome, dude. Looking forward to seeing you, man. And you can ask me more questions about this, about the Facebook privacy thing and other examples that you mentioned here in your question if you want to while we meet. Looking forward to meeting you. Okay. Okay, and then the question here is, what is a convertible note? And is it related to a convertible preferred? Okay, so let me first of all answer the question, which is, what is a preferred? What is a convertible note? So people call convertible notes converts as well, and it's an instrument that's part equity, part loan, and I'll explain what that means. So a lot of times what will happen is here in Silicon Valley, when you raise money for your startup, say you do an A round, then a year or two later you do a B round. If in between you have to raise more money, you can get a loan, and somebody can loan you money, and you're not sure you're gonna be able to pay that back in the near future because you're not cash flow positive. And so that convertible note is a loan. Let's just say that you pay 8% interest per year on that convertible note, that loan. Then it converts eventually into stock. And it usually converts at like a 30% discount or so, or 20% discount. So what that means is this: you got a loan, you're paying 8% interest on that loan. Then you raise more money next year at a valuation of this level. And this will convert into the value of that level minus 20 or 30%. So there's that incentive for that person to convert that loan, so to speak, into equity. And people just refer to it as a convert. All right. And you're asking about convertible preferred. So preferred and common shares basically are this. If you own preferred shares, you get preferential treatment. If the company goes belly up or something happens, you get paid before the common shareholders. Most shares are common. If you own stock in a company that's publicly traded, you almost definitely own common shares. If you invest in a private company, quite often you get preferred shares in the earlier rounds, and sometimes you get common shares in the later rounds. And the way it works is this: if a company goes bankrupt, what usually happens is the people that lent money to the company, meaning the debt holders, they have a senior claim. Okay, they get paid first, the debt holders. Then the preferred shareholders get money back. Then the common shareholders. So common shares is usually the lowest of the low, so to speak. And every situation is unique and a little bit different, and always get a lawyer to read through or create any documents that cover those topics if you're going to raise money using a convert. All right. And then Kevin is saying, hi, Chris. Hey, Kevin. Working my way through your business plan writing course. Absolutely love the comprehensive and logic of it all. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you. So for those of you not familiar with the business plan course, there's this cheesy saying, which is failing to plan is planning to fail. And it's astonishing how many people start companies without writing a business plan first. And starting a company is one of the most important business decisions of your life. And it astonishes me that people don't prepare appropriately. And so what I did was I created this course on Udemy called the Complete Business Plan Course. And it's a 9-hour course. And I provide you with 50 templates of 50 different types of business plans. And by the end of the course, you've created your entire business plan with me in the course. And you don't have to have any experience in business. So if you don't know how to financial model or what a balance sheet is, I teach you from scratch. And you're going to build your financial model in that business plan course as well. It's really easy. And after you finish taking the course, you export everything from an Excel spreadsheet into a Word doc, which becomes your business plan. And as an added bonus, what I did was, since I mapped a lot of fields anyway into that deliverable, the business plan document, some of the fields I mapped to a presentation. And so not only do you get 50 business plan templates in that course, you also get 25 presentation templates. And those templates are 10 pages long each with about 3 bullet points per slide. And I have all the fields mapped, so it pulls out the most important fields that you've created in that Excel document into a PowerPoint presentation. And I hope a lot of people taking that course decide not to launch a company. I know it's a weird thing to say, but if you're taking that course and you're writing a business plan and you realize that, oh my gosh, there's too many risks involved. I never thought about this as you're writing the business plan, then stop working on that business plan. Junk it, and write another one. And rinse, lather, repeat. Keep writing them until you have a rock solid business plan. Then launch a company. And if anybody has additional questions about business plans or that course, please let me know. And Kevin, thank you very much for that feedback. Appreciate it. Okay, so Ramsey is saying, how are you? I'm smiling because when I was a kid, my dad's Egyptian, and he speaks Arabic, and my mom is half Lebanese, the other half is Scottish, Irish, French. I'm Canadian. But my mom didn't speak Arabic growing up, but my dad taught me a couple words. And when I was 5 years old, he taught me the word khamsa, which is 5 in Arabic. That's the only word I know. I know a couple of swear words too, or things my dad used to say to me, like imshi, yawalet, that sort of thing. So anybody speaks Arabic on the call, you're probably chuckling a bit at my awful accents. All right, Ramsey, welcome to the call. And Ramsey is saying, if a business model that cannot be patented and branding will not protect the business concept, but rather the brand, an NDA can be overpassed by starting it in another business or business name. My question is, where do you go to seek financing and expertise, an investor and business partner to implement it? How to protect the idea from copying and being stolen when you present it. Yeah. So when it comes to NDAs or non-disclosure agreements, and for those of you not familiar with them, it's a document that you get people to sign before you meet with them so that they won't let anyone know what they learned in that meeting with you or anything they've read about your documents. And I don't recommend using an NDA when you first meet somebody. Because they're doing you the favor of meeting with you initially. And if right away you say, here's an NDA, some people take it the wrong way. They think, oh my gosh, who's this person meeting with me that's saying, I don't know if I trust you. So I don't recommend using the NDA right away. You can use it later on after you've met with a person a couple of times. And if they're serious about investing, and then you want to divulge certain things about your business model. But you can always be very, very high level. You don't have to disclose all the minutiae, all the small details. And so Elon Musk, for example, in the early days with Tesla, and he was not the founder, but if we pretend he was, let's say he went out and he met with investors and he said, I'm starting a company that makes a battery operated car. He wouldn't have to get an NDA for that until he provides all the details. The battery's going to weigh 900 pounds. It's going to be this big. It's going to be underneath the floor of the car, that sort of thing. But initially, don't use an NDA. And when you want to use an NDA, get a lawyer, obviously, to draft it. Don't do it yourself. And always seek counsel from a lawyer. And what I recommend doing actually is this. Lawyers can be really, really expensive. And so what you can do if you want to is you can go to LegalZoom.com. This is what I've done for my copyrights, which I've filed, as well as my trademarks. I haven't done anything from a patent perspective yet. But I've gone here and you pay $15 for a half-hour call. That's a one-time fee. That's it. And you can talk to any type of lawyer you want to. If it's a business-related matter, it's $30. And you can search through this website here on different types of lawyers. So here, for example, is intellectual property. So if we go here and say you're curious about trademarks, you can click this. The fee to create a trademark is $199 plus filing fees. I used this company initially, and I did an initial call with them for $30. And I've actually done my filings myself now. I learned how to do it, so I don't have to pay that fee. I learned from them. It was amazing. And you can talk to any type of copyright or trademark lawyer you want as well. They've got a ton of lawyers on the payroll, so to speak. And they really dumb it down, which is exactly what I needed. And the only issue that we had was when I was trying to copyright or trademark some of my brands overseas. The lawyers couldn't do it or didn't know how to do it in the United Kingdom because of Brexit. And there's just no precedence for that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But you can get your copyrights or trademarks honored in many, many countries by filing a certain way. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to tell you exactly how to do it. But what happened, the bottom line is this. In the late 1980s, there's a bunch of political leaders from 100 countries or so. They met up in Madrid. And they all said to each other, I'm going to honor your intellectual property in your country if you honor mine. And so that pact was signed, and that's called the Madrid Protocol. And so if you want to file things, not just in America, but overseas as well, what you can do if you want to, and again, I'm not a lawyer, is you can talk to a lawyer on LegalZoom and ask them about the Madrid Protocol as well. And never do all this stuff yourself, please. If you don't understand how to do it, get a lawyer to draft it up, especially when it comes to raising money. You want the lawyer to draft the offering memorandum. You never want to do that yourself, ever, ever, ever. You want all the risks to be disclosed before you ever do business with anybody. And Akil is asking, what is a discount covert? I don't know what that means, but I remember earlier in the call, you asked a question about a convertible note. And so what happens with a convertible note, as I mentioned, is it converts from a loan into stock at a discount to whatever, or into shares or stock, same thing, at a discount to whatever the company is worth at a future point in time. Next question is, would you recommend, hold on one second, this iPhotos keeps opening up. It's driving me nuts. Okay, I closed it. I hate when I plug in my iPhone and iTunes opens up as well. It's bloated, antiquated client server software that drives me crazy. Okay. All right, so next up is, would you recommend raising capital with a convertible debt or only general equity percent exchange for money raised? So I prefer, and this is just me, to do equity only. I actually don't like using a debt at all. And if you're going to do a convert or raise money at all, of course, speak to a lawyer first. So I prefer general equity over convertible debt. And the reason I don't like loans is because quite often what happens is if you don't pay back your loans on time, not only is your credit rating hit, obviously, but more importantly, the bank can take everything. And I'm gonna get down my knees and do something right now just because I care. Where am I looking? Which camera? This one. Please, 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 whatever you do, don't ever raise money or have a company without registering it legally first. Please, please, please. And I say this, and I know I kind of made a fool of myself kneeling there, but I care. I really, really care. And what happened was when I was younger, I'll never forget this. It was kind of traumatic. There was a family that lived next door to us in Mississauga in Canada. And one day I came home and the two kids, which were my age, my brother's age, 7 and 9 at the time, they were sitting on the front porch. And it was cold. And one of them had short sleeves on. And I remember asking, I said, hey, what's going on? Why don't you just go inside or come over to my house? And they were just sitting there. And I walked over to the house. And on the door, on the front door, what I saw was a note with a star on it from the sheriff, which said that we are taking possession of this house and we have changed the locks. And it was the reason it happened was the dude, and I won't mention who it is, but the person that started the company, and it was a wonderful Portuguese deli with the best. Oh my God, the desserts, the custard is so good. I loved it. But what they did was the family opened another one, and they got a big loan for it, and they didn't register the company name. It was registered to just the father that owned the house. And when that person could not pay back that loan, then the police, or the sheriff, I should say, and the bank changed the locks and took everything. Yeah. So make sure you always talk to a lawyer first. And I don't like loans, but if you are going to get a loan, please, please, please talk to a lawyer, please. And whenever you're raising any money, always talk to a lawyer so that all the risks are disclosed. And more importantly, so that your children, your spouse, your family, you, and all your possessions are protected. Okay. All right. Next one is, hi, Chris. Reading books is still relevant in 2019 or not? Or should one refer to videos in order to upgrade oneself? That's a great question. So media consumption has changed materially over the past couple of decades to the extent that breaks my heart. I love Major League Baseball, but it's so slow that I think it's in secular decline. I hate to say that, but it's true. They've got to do something. And the same thing with books. Like I know I write books and I mention them sometimes, but I don't really have the patience to sit down and read a book anymore. If I do read it, I love to use Audible just because we're all conditioned to multitask now. We can't just do one thing at one time. When we're watching TV, I have my iPad on my lap. I'm looking up Wikipedia because I'm curious about everything I'm watching on TV. And you know, when I'm going for a jog or a walk, I listen to an audiobook, or when I'm going for a drive, I listen to an audiobook. It's just a better way, I think, to absorb information, and it's a big time saver. You know, this and I know I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because I publish books and whatnot. But this book, like sitting down, and this is why with this book, by the way, I made all the chapters really, really short. Less is more always, really, really short. But when it comes to, and I have this on Audible as well, audible.com, but when it comes to books, I think it's easier and better to listen to the Audible version as well. That way you can kill two birds with one stone. Or Kindle works out well for me as well. Sometimes I'll be on my elliptical trainer, which I do usually every day at 4 p.m. And I'll be reading on my Kindle because this way I can just swipe through the pages instead of these, which, you know, are really a dying breed. And it breaks my heart because I remember I used to go into the offices of very successful people. And while I was talking to them, I would glance at their bookshelf. And what I would do is by the time I left and the elevator ride was done, I'm leaving the building, I'd ordered a ton of those books. And unfortunately, people don't do that as much anymore. And I remember Ken Griffin, who I used to work for at Citadel years ago. I went into his office, and first time I met him, really nice guy. We had a half-hour conversation about software and video games. He's a techie too. It was awesome. But I remember looking at his bookshelf, and he had a book on finance by this professor at NYU named Adamandorian. And so, of course, I bought that book right away. When I walked into Rick Sherlin's office, who was the analyst on Microsoft for years at Goldman Sachs, who was a rock star to me, I looked at his bookshelf, and he had a lot of books on web services and SaaS at the time. I ordered all of them. And now you can't do that as much because people don't have as many books on their shelves. If they do, look at them, please, and order those books. But what you can do is this also. You can go to their Twitter feed and see who they follow. And before you go into any meeting anyway with anybody, you should always go to their Twitter feed because you can find out, you know, what they're most passionate about. And sometimes they follow authors, sometimes they don't. But you can generally understand the person well by looking at their Twitter feed or go to their LinkedIn profile to see who they follow. And if they follow successful people, then go to Audible and download the biography or autobiography, if it exists, of that successful person. It's just a better way to consume media, listening versus just sitting down and reading a book. All right. And obviously, yeah, with your follow-up there, videos and upgrading yourself. I love that term. Thank you. I think videos, yeah, it's the future, and the future is now. This is the best way to learn. You can go to Udemy, take courses, or just do searches online and get your quick video answers. Like, for example, this complete videography course that I'm teaching. It's what's called Video Masterclass, the complete video guide, coming out next month, I think, or end of this month. But a lot of this stuff, I had no idea how to do this stuff. And so, yeah, I read a bunch of Kindle stuff. But I also did, you know, searches in YouTube a lot for how to do things, you know, especially this camera I'm talking to right now. You know, when I first started making this course, and it's taken me about a year to get it done. It's the biggest investment I've ever done in a course, but I was scared to get off of auto mode. You know, manual mode made me scared. I was scared of ISO, scared of ISO. I was scared of frame rates. I was scared of shutter speeds and aperture and all that stuff. And I went to YouTube and kind of pieced it together. And that's actually how I met Steve Washer. And I'm making a course with Steve Washer coming out later this month on videos. I met him because I was so lost when it came to green screens. Like, for those of you that have been with me for 54 weeks now, we're in the 54th week. Remember early on how awful, and go back to my early webcasts if you want. They're all in my YouTube account there. But my early webcasts were awful. The quality wasn't great, and the green screen, I couldn't get it right. And so I did a search on YouTube, and anyway, it was a quick fix. All right. And EJ's got a great question. He's saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning, EJ. How do you tell the difference between a broken stock and a broken company? Yeah. So if the fundamentals for a company don't change, but the stock sells off materially for whatever reason, that's a broken stock, not a broken company. And I love investing in broken stocks, never broken companies. A broken company, the stock is going to break eventually anyway. So I love to be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. I love to back up the truck when a stock that I love is down materially. It's a broken stock and not a broken company. And sometimes it feels like you're catching a falling knife when a company you love is selling off materially, and it feels really uncomfortable buying on the way down. But if you're a long-term investor, it might be one of the best investment decisions you've ever made. Always be long-term greedy. I don't know the path, but I know the destination. And the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world, as Warren Buffett said, the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. So when other people panic, you got to do the opposite. You always got to be a contrarian in business to be successful. If you buy the same stock everybody else is buying, who's the incremental shareholder to buy it and push it higher? You got to buy stuff people hate. Otherwise, what happens is you become a victim of groupthink and the Walking Dead, so to speak, and your portfolio will get crushed in the long run. Okay, so the question is difference between stock options and warrants. So stock options you give to new employees so that they can basically cash in on that stock in the future. And usually it's given to you at a certain pricing point, at a certain strike price, and it vests means you can cash it in. That's what vesting means, cash it in. Every 4 years usually, and usually you get stock options every year, so that when the shares you got from 4 years ago, the options, you can cash those in, but you might want to quit. And you're like, I can't quit because next year I have more options that I can vest, and the year after more options I can vest. So I've got golden handcuffs on. So anyway, that's that. Warrants, similar, a little bit different. We used to give warrants to our service providers whenever I started companies, like my lawyer, etc., which was kind of an option to buy stocks as well in the future. And they're quite complicated. They're all a little bit different as well. And so when I did my first venture capital investment when I was a teenager, I was in Canada, and I invested in a private company called Spectral Diagnostics, SDI, which people then later said SDI stands for Speculative Doctors Incorporated. But I did well on it. I sold it before it went public, actually. Or actually, no, right after the IPO, I sold it. But I was initially given warrants when I invested. It was just the way they structured that deal. So I've been taking a lot of risks my entire life. You'll never get ahead in life unless you take on risks, lots of risks, and unless you fail a lot. And I've got to end this question with my favorite quote ever from Michael Jordan, which is, "I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." And by the way, I got this made on Etsy.com, and you should do it too if you want to. Basically get motivational quotes and put them on the wall, and it helps me every time I look at that and I fail, which means all the time. I get motivated. Failing is a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor. And you'll never become successful unless you fail over and over and over again. Okay. Rudy. Hey, Rudy. So Rudy started an insurance company. He's based in Texas. Rudy is saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning. I'm trying to add a logo to my business plan, but I can't paste or insert it. I might be doing it wrong. Thank you. So you might be taking my complete business plan course. So I'll show you really, really quickly. Okay. So let's go together. And I love doing live software demos as well. If anybody ever has questions about how to edit film or photos or anything, Excel, whatever, I'll do it live here with you. And the complete YouTube course just came out with Sasha Stevenson, one of my students who I met on this call. It's a great course. It's doing well. But in the course, we talked about how we'll help you with your thumbnail images and YouTube video editing live on this weekly call if you want to. So what you do is this, and I'll just open a dummy Microsoft Word document. And when it's really, really simple. What you do is you just download the image and then you insert it here. And so when I've had graphic designers make my images, okay, so for example, I can just copy this image here. If it doesn't work, I'll show you another way. Okay, sometimes when you paste it, just paste the hyperlink. But it's that simple. You just right click, copy, and then paste. And if you want, you can actually remove the background of it as well. So let's say I wanted to remove, and this is a very low quality image, but if I want to remove the white part up here, what I can do, and you can use many different software products for this, you don't have to use Word. You can go here and you can replace the background or remove the background, and you can mark areas to keep and not keep. So what you can do is you can mark, hey, I want to keep this area here and this area here, and it takes a while, and eventually you get it perfect. This is, again, it's not a high quality image. There you go. You kind of get the idea there. It's not perfect, but I play around with that a lot more. And then what you can do is just, paste this again into your documents. And you can actually, if you want to, and I've done this a lot, you can go to Fiverr.com and get somebody to make your logo here. So if we go here, logo, and I use this a lot, and it's called Fiverr.com because you can get anything done starting at $5. The good ones charge you more. So let's find somebody here. For example, this person here for $20 will say, I will make a premium logo design for you in 24 hours. I don't want to sign in right now. And what you'll do is they send it to you in a couple different formats. Usually they send it to you in JPEG format, which is small for websites. You can also get PNG, which I love. PNG files are great because they're actually, you can get the transparent background as well. Or they'll send you an Adobe Illustrator an AI file. Or they'll send you a PXD, which is for Pixelmator, or a PSD, which is for Photoshop. I can run through how to use all those applications if you ever want me to as well. But I recommend getting logos done here. This guy looks good, man. 4.9 rating, 53 reviews. In 24 hours, you can get your logo done. And for those of you that have taken, hold on a second. For those that have taken my my course called the Complete Financial Analyst course, or even my business plan course, I actually got this logo done here by somebody on Fiverr, and it costs, I think it cost a little bit more than $5, but that's how I got it made. And this is just a dummy website. So you just copy it and then you paste it directly into Word or whatever document you're using. And so here's the logo that person made for next to nothing. It looks great. It looks great for a pretend company. But anyway, I recommend using Fiverr to get a logo made for you. But you do get what you pay for. So if you pay for something expensive, maybe you'll get a better quality result. But start off with a cheaper one first. And always read the reviews of the people on Fiverr first. And make sure they have a lot of reviews, not just a handful. All right. And if that did not answer your question, Rudy, please let me know. I'm curious now to see your logo you made for your insurance company. If you want, you can share. You don't have to, though. All right. Okay, and I don't know what that means. Akil wrote 54 here. Maybe it's with respect to something else up above. But your question is, as a founder, how can I reduce dilution when raising capital? Can I avoid it? So you always want to get lawyers to create offering memorandums and all the paperwork to protect you. And every time you raise money from high net worth investors, you're giving them part of the company. And so you're giving up partial ownership in the company. And, over time, if you want to go public, in almost all cases, by the time the company goes public, you only own 20%. And so when you raise money through equity, you're obviously giving up part ownership in the company. Now, if you raised money with a venture capital firm, there's a lot of details in the legal documents that you sign that cover dilution. And make sure that you tell your lawyer to explain it to you thoroughly and to explain what dilution can or might be. But it's always up to you. Do you want to raise more money? Yes or no? If you do want to raise more money, then you're going to get diluted. You're going to get diluted. But a lot of times you don't care that you're going to get diluted because you're going to raise more money at a much higher valuation. So yes, you'll own a smaller percent of the company, but the value of your ownership is much, much higher now. And so a lot of times people start companies and obviously they own 100% at the start. By the time they go public, if they go public, usually they own, well under 20% of the company, but they're worth a lot more. And for me, I've sold equity in my companies before. I prefer to, and I've never ever sold more than 50% because I want to have ownership. Yes, I've had boards before and it's been great, and they've helped me a lot. But I don't want the board to tell me how to run my company. It's just how I am. But earlier in life, I didn't have that flexibility, unfortunately. And even for this company right now, I own 100%. And I've had people approach me and say they want to invest in the company as well. And I said, no, thank you. And I don't care what value it's at. I just want to be me and teach my way. And I find that the more people involved in your company, the more ownership you give up, the more diluted the decision making gets as well. You might have started a hedge fund where one of your big investors might be really worried about the market, and they're like, "Well, maybe you should go short the market." You don't want people telling you how to do your job. All right, next up is Rohit is saying, "I love your book, 101 Crucial Lessons I Don't Teach in Business School." Thank you, appreciate that. It's this one here. You wrote it so simple and insightful. Any tips on how you managed to write it so well? Well, I get a ghostwriter for all my books. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm one bad joke away from destroying my reputation. No, I just like this one here. The way I write it is, if it ever feels like work, it's going to suck, and I don't work on it. But what I do is, I'll go for walks and I email myself a lot. I know it sounds out there, but the way that I kind of organize my life and content is I email things to myself with different subject lines. So, for example, for the complete YouTube course, whenever I had something that I wanted to add to that course, then what I would do is I'd email myself with the word CY or the letter CYTC in the subject line. And then later on, I search through those within Gmail. I'm going to show you live Gmail. I've got nothing to hide. Here I go. All right. So here's how I do it. So if we go to my Gmail account here, and if you want to reach me for the MBA thing, just email admissions@harounventures.com, please. Okay. So these just alerts, somebody in my house, whatever. But what I can do is I search through my emails, and you can do an advanced search as well. And so if I search for the word CYTC, complete YouTube course, in the subject line, a bunch of them are here. Okay, so what I did was here, I made a comment when showing cameras and audio devices, show pop-ups saying use the indoors instead, or use whatever. So, and when they're unread, it means I haven't read it and I haven't added to the course, or I can flag it if I want to. And I have another one for a complete video course, and this is how I kind of structured all the stuff for the video course. You can tell I'm still working on it now. And then here, like for example, this one here, this is a note I sent to myself when I was going for a walk or I was in the gym or something, which was add to the complete video course. This one here is make sure you talk about cheap lighting and PVC and poles. And so for those of you that have seen my studio, and I've showed it before, I have poles on the ceiling that are screwed into what's called the joists, which are like studs in the wall. But the joists, and what I did was each screw I have can withhold, 150 pounds. I've got them everywhere up above. And I love everything in my studio to either be on wheels or mounted on the ceiling. But I realized that when I was making that video in my complete videography course coming out soon, I realized not everybody's going to want to buy steel. And it might be expensive for some people to put these metal poles up. And so here I said, well, I'll teach them also how to do it with cheap plastic PVC piping, which you can buy and cut up into pieces like this person has done here. And then also right here, and I got the idea from Pinterest. So anyway, that's how I kind of structure all of my unstructured logic when it comes to creating content and it's being organized somehow. I sometimes I'll even put it in a calendar entry and have that calendar entry repeat every single day. And the calendar entry might be something like ideas for my book. And so I email myself a lot. And I index it all by putting something different in the subject line. So when I need to create the content or sit down and write, I just go to Gmail and do an advanced search on the subject line. All right. Next up is, and by the way, when it came to the book, like this one, what I did was I was working on it for a while, and then I was like, I got to get this done. And so I started vocalizing. I started telling people, hey, I'm writing a book. And that kind of put pressure on me in a loving way, because every time I saw the person next to her, like, how's that book coming along? And then what I did was I then set a deadline date, and I told people the deadline date, so I had to get it done. And whenever you set goals, I recommend vocalizing these goals. Because when you vocalize them, it puts pressure on you in a good way to get it done. And more importantly, set a deadline date. Most people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the third week of January because they don't vocalize it, they don't tell everybody. And also, more importantly, they don't set a deadline date. So set a deadline date for when you're going to publish your book. And kudos, hats off to Philip Germany, again, for writing this book. I ordered it from Amazon. And it's prophetic, but the name of the book is Super Students, and he's one of my many super students. All right. Okay, and Siddharth is saying, good morning to you too. And the question is, to get a job is networking, is only to reach a dream job. Yeah, so I think that it's so hard to just send in an application for a job advert or advertisement online, because every time you see an advertisement for a job online, thousands of people apply for it, and it's tough. And a lot of times the person that gets the job knows somebody, that's right, that works at that company. So I want you to know somebody too. So what I want you to do is I want you to download this book from my website, harounventures.com, and I want you to network a lot. And it's over 200 pages and a couple hours of video links as well. And this will teach you how to get meetings with people, anybody you want basically at any company. It's a lot easier than you think. And if you network a lot that way, just for informational meetings, I promise you that's a better way to get a job. All right. And then Ranjini is saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning to you too. Really thrilled to connect with you. Thank you. Likewise. I am a business storyteller, and I build the custom content for companies that resonates with their audience. Very cool. Very cool. That's neat. And what I do sometimes when it comes to storytelling, and I recommend you guys do this as well, when you're creating a presentation, if you want to, you can actually go to Powtoon. Oops. And I have an account here, and you can create a cartoon or anything visual animation based. It's really easy to do. And you can include this in your presentations or courses or vlogs online or whatever it is. It's really, really easy to do. And I've done this a lot using Powtoons. And what I actually did was, I don't know if any of you have taken my complete financial analyst course. But in that course, what I did was I created cartoons on, I can't get YouTube to work here for some reason. I created cartoons on what financial analyst roles are important, what ones are not. And so if we go here to my website, that's what we're looking at right now. Now I'm confused. Hold on one second. I want to show you guys an example of this. All right, we'll go here to my webpage. And if you go to my webpage and you search for the word financial analyst, you can actually see analyst. You can actually see a cartoon that I made that kind of highlights all the different financial analyst roles. And it was really, really effective. And I've got tons when I search the word analyst, but there's one right on my website. I'm not doing a very good job here, guys. Sorry about that. But there's one on my website if you want, you can go to, on my YouTube channel to see how I create these cartoons. But I got to show it to you. Give me 1 second. This is important. I think it'll help you out tremendously. All right. All right. Sorry, guys. One second. Maybe it's here. Aha, here it is here. Okay, yeah. So this one here, so check this out. This one's got a couple 100,000 views. And I made this using Powtoons. And it just explains, all the different roles. And I did it in cartoon format about this guy that starts a company and he wants to raise money from a venture capitalist. And it tells you in about 4 minutes how VC and investment banking works, and many different financial analyst roles like mutual funds, hedge funds, private wealth management, and that sort of thing. And it's got a really sad ending to that video. You can watch it if you want. Hopefully you laugh at it as well. I had fun making it, but check it out if you get a chance. Go to Powtoons and create videos. You can get a free trial, and I probably shouldn't say this, but when you pay for it, what happens is in the bottom right-hand corner, the logo of Powtoons doesn't appear. But what you can do, if you wanted to, is you can do a screen record of just the middle part of the screen if you want. Okay, anyway. I'm not getting sponsored by that company or any company. I'm not sponsored. I never will be by anybody. And I never get compensated for mentioning any products at all. All right, so Amina's saying, hi, Chris. I hope you're doing great. Do you think learning VBA, which stands for Visual Basic for Applications, which allows you to drag and drop buttons, radio buttons, as well as drop-down lists within Excel, Word, and PowerPoint too, and then connect it with a couple lines of code? So your question is, do you think learning VBA will help me as a financial analyst, or is it not worth the effort? No, it'll definitely help you. It'll help you a lot, actually. You just got to make sure that whoever opens that document, the Excel document, for example, understands that there's macros involved. Code is created in the background when you use VBA. And I don't use any code in any of my spreadsheets, any of my courses, because of the security issues. You'll notice that whenever you see a button on one of the Excel spreadsheets I create in my courses, it's actually just an image with you right-click and add a hyperlink. That's all it is. I don't add any code at all. But it can actually help you to be able to do advanced spreadsheet analysis when you work for a big financial services company. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun too. I miss those days. I used to be a coder. I used to code in Visual Basic too. I'm dating myself. All right. Next up, we've got, good morning, Chris. Good morning. I have a question with options trading. Will your option position execute once you sell it? Will it be executed if I try to sell 1,000 contracts? I mean, it's instantaneous. It's like selling a stock, right? So if it's a very liquid stock or a very liquid options position, you always want to check liquidity, always on any financial instruments before you buy them. If it's very liquid, then you should be able to get out pretty quickly. Okay, but it all depends on what parameters you set, market price or limit or whatever it is. And a lot of options will just expire at a certain date anyway, so you don't have to actually ever sell them. They just expire, and hopefully well above the strike price. All right. Rohan is saying, hi, Chris. Hey, Rohan. Can you please give some insight on natural gas and crude oil prices during recession time? If the price goes up or down, and are there any indicators by which we can come to know that, and you wrote RESE, reason it's going to hit. Yeah. So almost most commodities move up or down in line with the economic cycle. Okay. So if we go into a horrible recession, the price of oil and natural gas drop a lot. Why? Because a lot of companies use oil and natural gas to build products, and there's not as much demand for those products during recessions, so they don't buy as much of those commodities. And given the laws of supply and demand, if the supply stays the same and demand goes down, then what happens is the price goes down. Now, there's certain commodities actually go up during recessions, and those are the fear commodities, like some rare earth items, but more importantly, gold. And you can buy gold by going to Yahoo Finance and just type in the ticker GLD, or whatever finance website you use, GLD. And I love to own gold, especially during recessions. And I always own a little bit of gold anyway. And so gold goes up a lot when people are really, really scared. It's just the way it works. And the same thing with the US dollar. It is what it is. When people are really scared of a global recession, usually the US dollar goes up, because what happens is people want to have a flight to quality. And if their own currencies are very volatile and unstable, they prefer to own some US dollars in their portfolio. And so the bottom line, though, on commodities, per your question here, is crude oil and natural gas prices go down a lot, as do most commodities when we're in a recession. But the price of gold goes up when we're in an economic recession, usually. Okay. All right, next up, I love tips on the business side of things. Worthwhile, productive networking. I've been a digital journalist with NBC, CNN, and PBS. That's cool. So video and content for various platforms is my thing. Okay, tips on the business side. I'm trying to see how I can answer that. You mentioned productivity and networking, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Relationships are always more important than product knowledge. And so the best way to get ahead in any industry is to network a lot. You can go to my website, harounventures.com, download this book for free, which will help you to network a lot within the digital media industry there. It sounds like you got a fun job there. And if you have more specific questions, or if I didn't answer your question properly, and this goes for everybody in the call, just ask it a different way or ask it again. Thanks. Okay, the question is, when do you pay for the new MBA fees? So we're going to send an email out shortly. It will likely be by the end of September, meaning that the payment is due then. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a bunch of questions on that. Yeah. And how do you pay it? So I'm going to do it, I think, through Teachable, only because I have an e-commerce engine set up already with Teachable. So when you go to my website, if you buy courses from me, like there are a lot of links to Udemy, but some you can actually purchase them and take them on my website. What that is actually Teachables, teachable.com. And what happens is with Teachable, that you can create courses on your website and sell them that way. It's not as good as doing Udemy because I don't get as much traffic on my website, obviously. I never will get as much as Udemy gets. But the good thing about Teachable is that they have an e-commerce engine payment system set up so that I can collect money from anybody all over the world using different forms of payments, Stripe, PayPal, whatever it is. They take care of that for me. And Vipul saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning to you too. And if I missed anybody's question in between, please repost them. Akil saying, why is the order very important on the balance sheet? So what you do on the balance sheet is, at least with assets and liabilities, you order them from stuff you can convert to cash fastest to stuff that takes you longest to convert to cash. So for example, with assets, you've got current assets first, basically stuff that you can convert within a year. And then you've got long-term assets, right? And that's more applicable actually on the balance sheet side, for liabilities. You got current liabilities like accounts payable or salaries payable. Then you got long-term liabilities below that, which is like loans that are due in several years from now, that sort of thing. But when it comes to assets, you always want to order them in terms of how quickly you can convert them to cash. So obviously the first line item is cash, because cash is already cash. And marketable securities, which you can convert right away, like treasuries into cash. And then you have other things like accounts receivable, as opposed to accounts payable, which is a liability. Accounts receivable, which you can convert into cash, but it'll take you a little bit longer to collect from your customers. And then you have other items, and eventually stuff you own, like a factory, which will take longer to sell and convert to cash. All right, next up is, what or who is a promoter in stocks? Yeah, I don't really know. I caution everybody to always do your own research and don't rely on anybody trying to talk his or her book, meaning promoting their own stocks. I don't recommend watching financial news television either, because what happens is the CEOs get on for their company, and of course they're going to promote their stock, their company. That's how they made CEO. They're great salespeople. And a lot of times you'll have mutual fund analysts or portfolio managers, talking about stocks. And obviously they're going to promote the stocks they own already. I always want you to do your own research and be an independent thinker. Otherwise, what happens is if you rely on other people for picking your stocks, then when the stock goes down, you'll panic. And I think in the cryptocurrency industry, it's really dangerous as well. A lot of people will do this, which is unethical and against the law. And there's going to be big repercussions at some point. Mark my words. People will get arrested and go to jail. A lot of people will actually buy cryptocurrencies and then they'll hype them up. They'll tell everybody to buy them. Pardon me. And then what happens is after everybody buys them, they'll sell. And sometimes they say, oh, no, you got to sell this cryptocurrency. And it goes down again. Then they'll buy it again and then promote it again. Very, very dangerous, very unethical. It's an unregulated market as well. And that's why I caution you not to put that much of your net worth into cryptocurrencies. Next is Siddharth is saying, hey, Chris, I just started trading in the stock market. Can you give me some tips which help me to understand the stock market? Also, can you suggest some books to read on the stock market? Yeah. So I want you to get deep into the weeds and understand financial statements. So there's a book by Howard Shillett called Financial Shenanigans. I want you to read that book as well, just so you can understand financial statements better. And it'll also make you a fundamental longer-term investor. Other books include any biography you can find on Warren Buffett. You can also read The Intelligent Investor, which was written by Benjamin Graham, who is a professor at Columbia, and that's why Warren Buffett went there. That's his favorite book in the world. And when Warren Buffett came and guest lectured one of my classes when I was at Columbia Business School, his wife was there too, and God bless her, she passed away, but she was teasing him that on their honeymoon, true story, he brought the book The Intelligent Investor. That's how passionate he is about stocks. So check out that book as well. It's a little bit dry, but it'll help you from a value investing perspective. Aside from that, there's really not that many great finance books out there that I recommend. If you want, you can read a book called Fooled by Randomness and another book by the same author called Black Swan. And the Fooled by Randomness book is by a guy named Taleb. It'll impress upon you the fact that you cannot be short-term focused. You cannot be a trader. You have to be long-term focused. Otherwise, you'll never make money. You'll never make money. And there's a reason why we've never heard of successful traders' names. Because they're tourists. And that career is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And just in terms of other things to learn for the market, you can take my course called the Complete Financial Analyst Training Course. It's over 20 hours long. And I walk you through all the different financial analyst roles, and I teach you how to analyze a stock from scratch and how to do your own due diligence and how to pick stocks. I'll never, ever, ever tell you what stocks to buy. I want to teach you how to fish and not give you a fish. All right, and Kurt is saying, I compared the M50 to my friend's Nikon 750. It holds its own and takes great pictures. Thanks for the suggestion. My pleasure. My pleasure. And I've got it actually over here as well. It's mounted. If you want, I can answer any questions you have on it in real time. But the M50 is probably the best vlogging camera you can get because you can turn the screen around so that you can see yourself while you're vlogging. It is what's called a crop sensor, not a full frame sensor. So it won't give you the absolute best resolution like this camera can, which is full frame, or this camera here, which is also full frame. That's a Canon 5D Mark III from 2012. It's my best camera. I love it. It's changed my life. Taught my first Udemy course using that. It's full frame. And this one here is also full frame. It's a C300 camera. But I've got my Nikon up here, my Sony, the Canon M50 here, and a bunch of other ones. If you want GoPros, drones, everything right here. If anybody has any questions on how to do any of that stuff, I'd be more than happy to give you my humble thoughts. Okay. Oh, and one more thing on the M50. Make sure you get an external recorder for audio. And this goes for everybody. You can get a shotgun mic made by a company called Rode, great Australian company. Jason, I don't know if you're still in the call, but good day. RODE, they make great shotgun mics. Or you can get something that looks like this. And this is the best recorder I have. You get a lavalier. You clip it here on your shirt. I always wear black shirts because a lot of times I wear this lav, so you can't see it as much. And then all you do is you plug it into the side here on this product, which is called the H1N Zoom. And I always record with a couple different audio sources just in case. And this device is great. You basically just plug in your microphone here, you hit record, and you're done. It's that simple. And then you push the hold button here on the side so that if you push any of the buttons accidentally in your pocket, nothing changes, right? So for example, if I push here to hold, it doesn't matter what buttons I push here, it won't change at all. And the last thing I'll say about this is if you get one of these devices, you need to get a piece of tape and put it over the gain. And the gain makes it louder or less loud. And the reason I say use a piece of tape is because if you don't, what happens is the gain dial can move in your pocket, which destroys the audio. And if you have additional questions about microphones or any cameras or anything else, let me know. Thanks. All right. Next up is Akil, who's saying, give me 1 second, actually. Let me see if Wrigley is contacting me. All right. No messages means good messages. Okay, great. I'll put this down here. All right. Next question is, what factors do you set the percent value or depreciation? So depreciation differs in every country and with every government administration, or it can at least, because depreciation laws and accounting laws change a lot. And so the reason to hire an accountant, which I do for my company as well as for personally, is because they're always up to date on what the IRS, which is the tax agency here in America, they're always up to date on what the tax code is. So for example, and I'll make this generic and very high level, in many countries, you can depreciate hardware over 2 years. So for example, this is hardware, and I can depreciate it 50% this year, 50% next year, for example. Software, in many countries, you can depreciate over 1 year, which is great for the software industry. And there's other ways to account for things too. And usually people depreciate other items over the life of that item. So if I buy a machine and it's going to last 10 years, then what I do is I depreciate 10% every year. And you want to depreciate it because it makes the taxes you pay lower every single year. Really, really important to depreciate stuff and always hire an accountant. Okay, always. And yeah, I know I teach accounting, I get it. But accountants are more up to speed on what the IRS tax code is and how it's changing. And I don't recommend anybody file their own taxes in any country. And you can take my complete personal finance course for more details on that. You can actually customize that course for every country in the world with the downloadable Excel spreadsheet. But you always want to talk to professional accountants or tax lawyers too. And so tax lawyers are very expensive. I almost had a heart attack the first time I hired a tax lawyer. Just the hourly rate was crazy, but it saves you a lot of money in the long run. It really does. It really does. It's a great investment. And the same thing comes to when you get an employment contract. If you get one, you got to get a lawyer to read it. Always, always, always. Okay. Nikhil's saying, what does the gross mean? The gross meaning in gross profits. I don't know, actually. I don't know. But basically, you take revenue minus the cost of goods sold, and that's gross revenue or gross profit. You can call it as well. I don't know. I don't know why it's called gross. Now you got me. Now you got me curious. Gross. I don't know. All right. Next is, what digital currency do you use while shopping? I mean, in the real world, people use crypto. Is for investing purposes only, I think. Yeah, no, some people use Bitcoin to buy things. Whenever I go to Stanford to guest lecture at the Graduate Business School, you can pay with Bitcoins if you want to there it's called the Coupa Cafe on the GSB campus. And that's probably the only, I've seen it except a couple other retail stores as well. It's more gimmicky. I've seen it in some kind of cool and hip coffee shops in San Francisco. But I think a lot of people believe that Litecoin is going to be used in the future, ticker LTC, instead of BTC. That's Bitcoin's ticker. Litecoin is faster, and I own a bit of Litecoin. I have for a long time. I own a bit of Bitcoin. I have for a long time, and I'm never selling it. I own Ether, which is Ethereum's. The Ethereum platform's cryptocurrency is Ethereum. And I also own some Ripple, which is for financial services companies. So those are the 4 that I own. I'm not telling you to buy or sell them. I have no idea what the price is at right now. I don't really care. I'm just a long-term investor in them. All right. And online, you can actually use Bitcoin on some websites too. I don't really use it. I just use my credit card online. Yeah. And I don't really use cash anymore for anything. And it's great because at the end of the year, my accountant gets all my credit card statements, and I actually also have input into QuickBooks. It's easier that way too from an accounting perspective. All right. Next is Jason, who's saying, what sort of price earnings multiple would you expect from blue chip companies? Yeah, blue chip companies, you're saying large established companies. So when companies are very big and they're established, they're not growing very fast. And it's not their fault. They're just big. It's the law of large numbers. It's kind of like the United States economy. The GDP of America, which is basically revenue of America, sort of. It's about 1/3 of the world's revenue. And the GDP or revenue of America will never grow more than a couple percent per year. Never. Because it's just really big. It's the law of large numbers. And so big companies get like that too. Like IBM, for example, or General Electric. These big companies, they get so massive, or Oracle, they can't really grow organically. And so what they do a lot of times, they make acquisition, which makes it look like growth is a little bit better than it actually is. But when it comes to the price earnings multiple on any company, including an established company, I always look at the growth rate. And I always look at what's called the PEG ratio. And the PEG ratio is the price earnings divided by the growth, okay? And the rule of thumb is this. The average company in the S&P 500 trades at 15 times earnings, historically. And the average company in the S&P grows earnings at 15%. So the price earnings is 15. The growth rate of earnings is 15%. That's a price earnings to growth ratio of 1. That's a PEG, price earnings growth ratio of 1. And anything that's at 1 or less is usually a good buying opportunity as long as you love the fundamentals and the long-term vision of the company. And anything above a price earnings to growth ratio of 2 is probably too expensive, and a lot of hedge funds look to short it. Of course, you got to look at the fundamentals first before ever deciding on whether to buy or short a company. And so when it comes to large established companies, because they're not growing very fast, the price earnings ratio is probably pretty low, between 10 and 15 times. And it might be a bit higher if they have a high dividend yield. It all depends. It all depends. You always got to look at the dividends. And by the way, if you're shorting a stock and it has a dividend and it pays a dividend and it goes ex-dividend while you short it, then you actually owe the money on that dividend as well. All right. And Siddharth is saying, Chris, can you please tell me more about the cold call and how it's done and how is this important to an MBA graduate? Yeah. So cold calling is really, really important. And given the emergence of social media, the best way to cold call is using social media, especially LinkedIn. Because I know for a fact, every single person on this call, every LinkedIn message you've ever gotten, you've opened. You have. Every email you've gotten, you open? No way. I don't open almost all of my emails. I'm just inundated with too much stuff. And so in LinkedIn, what you can do is you can send somebody an email. And what happens is the top right-hand corner of the LinkedIn screen, you've got a valuable piece of real estate that turns red, which is a flag to show you have messages. You've got mail. I'm dating myself there. But I think that if you read this book cover to cover, and you can get this on my website, harounventures.com, it's free. I'll teach you a lot of tricks on how to cold call. And in order to be successful, networking or in business in general, you got to accept the fact that a lot of people aren't going to respond to you. And don't see that as a failure. It's just a game of numbers. It's like asking somebody out on a date. If you ask enough people and you're cool with failure, eventually you'll get a great date. The same thing when it comes to networking as well. And next up is Adish, who's saying, we are staying in Soma, that's south of Market here in San Francisco. Can we schedule a tentative time to meet this afternoon? It will take an hour plus to get to Millbrae. Thanks. Now, I'm so sorry. I'm just meeting at Paris Baguette this afternoon, but I'll be there for a long time. So it's like maybe a half hour, 40-minute drive, depending on rush hour. Go to Google Maps to find out how long it'll take you to get there. But we're all going to meet today, and I'm not going to go home until I've answered all questions from all students. So I might be there very late. So I'll be there about 20 minutes after this call is scheduled. And again, it's right by SFO, which you might have landed into the airport. And it's about 10 minutes away from the airport in Millbrae at a place called Paris Baguette. And I'll meet students there for coffee, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun. All right. And next question is, how do you keep up with all the channels, Chris? By that, do you mean the YouTube channels, or do you mean all the different ways I change like this? Let me know, please, and I'll be more than happy to answer the question. Thanks. Okay, but when it comes to channels on television or news, I don't really watch the news. If something happens, I'll get a breaking news Wall Street Journal notification. Earlier in the call, Andrew asked about the article on the Goldman Sachs partnership exodus, and I found out about that through the Wall Street Journal breaking news email that I subscribe to. I also get CNN breaking news and a couple others as well, but I really don't read the news that much. I find the news is very negative now. Partially because, and things are good in the world. I don't care what people say. There's a lot of good going on. But what's happening is this. A lot of younger people, they grew up digital. They grew up with YouTube. And they're getting older now, and they don't watch news on TV. I think that television news is in secular decline. And what happens is, like my kids, for example, and if you guys have kids or cousins or nieces or nephews, watch how they consume media. If their parents are watching television, they'll sit on the couch watching their YouTube on their mobile handset, their Android or iPhone. And that terrifies the traditional media companies because they might become extinct if we all choose our own news and we watch other things online and we get our own news independently, our own way. It's terrifying for big media companies. And as a result, big media companies have to have the shock value clickbait. And usually it's negative stuff, really negative stuff, but it keeps you watching. You might be watching the news, and my wife, Christine, loves to watch the news. I don't. But sometimes in the kitchen, I'll be cooking dinner, and in the background on the television, I'll hear somebody say, find out why we're heading into a global economic recession and why you should sell your stocks after the break, after commercial. So anyway, I curate my own news. I don't want you to all pay attention to financial news, especially. Otherwise, you'll panic at the wrong time when it comes to stocks. All right. Next up is, and sometimes I find out accidentally through social media why something is happening. Like if something awful happens in business or something else in life, I'll find out through Twitter. People will RT it or retweet it. Or Facebook, somebody might mention something, and I never check Facebook anymore. I think Facebook is going into secular decline. I don't trust the company. It's kind of a harsh thing to say. But given what's happened with Cambridge Analytics and stuff, you can't blame me. And I think that Facebook actually is, I think, so America, this might be controversial, but America is more divided today than it has been at any point since the hippie movement in the 1960s. And I think Facebook, kind of plays into that. What Facebook does is it has an algorithm that knows if you're a Democrat or a Republican. And a lot of times the sponsored video stories that you get are based on what it thinks you are. And so it makes people more left-wing or more right-wing, that sort of thing. And a lot of people get depressed after going to Facebook as well. It's got this weird psychological impact on you because people only post happy stuff on Facebook. Look at me, I'm at a fancy restaurant. This is what I'm eating. Look at me, I'm on vacation in front of the Eiffel Tower. And so people only, for the most part, post positive things, which leaves a lot of people, at least, not me because I don't really go to Facebook much anymore, but it leaves a lot of people actually a little bit sad when they use Facebook, which is bizarre. But there's this whole keeping up with the Jones mentality thing, which is expedited really on Facebook as well. You already have everything you need to build something bigger than yourself. You don't have to buy anything. That was a quote from Seth Godin. All right, next one is, why are the poor countries unable to catch up with the developed countries? It's a general question. So it all depends on the government. And I'm a capitalist, definitely a capitalist. But if a country is not very business friendly, then not as many companies will start in that country, and not as many jobs will be created. And if a country has a lot of political and geopolitical uncertainty to it as well for various reasons, foreign investors will not want to invest in that country. And so you've got to have a very stable political system and a capitalist-oriented government that gives away a lot of incentives for other companies to locate there and start businesses. So a lot of it comes down to politics as well. And is that country business friendly or not? And it takes a while to move from a second or third world country to a first world country, so to speak. And we used to refer to emerging economies or second world economies when I worked at Goldman Sachs as BRIC economies: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And now those are, for the most part, developed countries. But it took a while for that to transition. But you can transition from third and second world country to first world. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of government support as well. All right, I gotta get something to eat here. Hold on. Got my shake, which I make, as you all know, every Sunday. All right. And by the way, if you ever want to lose weight, this is out there. But make a shake and take it with you, and only take a sip when you're hungry. Right? A lot of people, they consume way too much, and a lot of people that are not overweight, what they do is they actually eat a lot, but they have 5 small meals throughout the day, smaller meals, and that's why a lot of chefs are not overweight. Like, there's that stereotype that chefs are always really, really big and fat. A lot of them are not. And the reason is because they're standing all day, which burns a little bit more calories than sitting. And they don't have time to sit down for a meal. And so what they'll do is when they're chopping carrots or whatever it is they're chopping and preparing, if they're a little bit hungry, they'll get a sample here and there. So just small meals throughout the day. All right. Ernesto is asking, thank you for the value you add to your students. My pleasure. Thank you. This is fun, eh? I want to start a search fund to acquire companies. Should I go after private investors, family offices, or angel investors to invest in my funds? Okay, yeah. So it sounds like you want to start a private equity company. So I would initially, whenever I've raised money, before I get the institutional investors to invest, I've always gone after high net worth investors. And you can always just go and read this book on my website. I've mentioned this a lot, but I go after high net worth investors because the sales cycle is much shorter. If you're trying to raise money from a big institution, there's a lot of people involved, and it takes forever for them to say no or yes. But high net worth investors, sometimes it's just 1 or 2 meetings. I would go after high net worth investors initially. And then later, when you want to raise more money, you got to be strategic too. You got to think to yourself, if you have this luxury, if I get this venture capital firm to invest in my company, will they help me? Will the partner from that VC firm that's on my board, help to get me customers or help me grow my business, that sort of thing. But with venture capital firms, so it can be dangerous. It can be a deal with the devil sometimes if you're not careful, because what happens is they have a fiduciary duty to their investors, and they're on your board, and they might own a big part of the company. And if things are not working out well, God forbid, they might let you go. They might let you go. And I hate when that happens because I don't think that venture capitalists should ever fire founders, ever, 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 because those founders understand that business model better than VCs ever will. But the bottom line is early on, start with high net worth in family offices, and then move to the institutional side once you get a lot bigger. And always, of course, goes out saying, get a lawyer to draft your offering memorandum before you raise any money from anybody ever. All right, next up is, pardon me, let me get some coffee here. That's my bulletproof coffee. And if you're curious about my diet or lack thereof, you can always take my course on Udemy called 30-Day Challenge to a More Productive and Much Happier You. And I explain all of my biohacks and productivity hacks and that sort of thing. And for those of you that are students in my MBA degree program, I got a couple big surprises for you from a daily scheduling perspective that's going to help you accomplish twice as much every single day forever, or your money back. Okay. And once it becomes about the money for me, don't ever take a course from me again. It's got to be something I'm passionate about. And I remember it was like a year and a half ago, I started making a course called the Complete Management Course. And I made a couple parts of it. Like I made part of it was how to motivate employees, which is a standalone course now. Another one's called How to Delegate. And then it got really boring for me. And my heart just wasn't into it, this qualitative management stuff. And so I stopped making it. And the second anything becomes about the money is when you should just say, screw it, I got to do something else. But for me, at least for now, and I know it'll be like this forever. I don't have a job. I've got a passion. I absolutely love what I do. All right, next question is, what's the difference between a bank and an investment bank? And how are investment banks related to investors? Yeah, it's a great question. So an investment bank is traditionally a large bank that will take companies public or help them with mergers and acquisitions. And a lot of big investment banks have a lot of different divisions. So if we look at JP Morgan, which is massive, they have investment bankers that will do IPOs. They also have a trading floor to be able to send the stocks that are IPO'd to their investors. And that trading floor can also make money through commissions. That firm, JP Morgan, which is a lot like other large firms as well in the investment banking industry, they also have a private wealth management division where they have employees that are financial analysts that raise money and manage money for high net worth investors. And there's great synergies between the different departments in a firm like that. So for example, if the investment bankers at JP Morgan take a company public, they get the fee from taking a company public, and then they trade that stock a lot on the trading floor. And then the high net worth financial analysts that work at JP Morgan will sometimes talk to the bankers and get introduced to the wealthy founders who just harvested their investment by going public. They have a lot of money. And so the private wealth management people at JP Morgan will manage the money for those high net worth people. And there's another division in JP Morgan, for example, called JP Morgan Asset Management, which is like a mutual fund. And so that they also sell mutual funds. And they also have, they also issue bonds. They underwrite bonds. They do all this stuff, anything to do with money, raising money or equity, debt or equity. That's what a big investment bank usually does. Now, there are also what are called boutique investment banks, which basically means a smaller company. All they do is investment banking, or all they do is M&A advisory. Now, when it comes to traditional banks, traditional banks might be the ones that are small, but just have retail branches open to lend money to companies or to people. But they don't have a more elaborate infrastructure incorporating investment banking or trading or asset management or private wealth management divisions. And so in terms of the relationship between investors and investment banks in general, well, the investors buy the stocks from the investment banks that they take public through the investment bank's trading floor. They buy stocks and bonds as well. There's investment bankers for the debt side, for underwriting debt or issuing bonds, that sort of thing. And so the trading floors at these big investment banks are set up so that investors like mutual funds or hedge funds, or sometimes very high net worth investors, can call in and buy shares right from that trading floor. Otherwise, what they might do if you're a retail investor and not high net worth, you might just transact online. And a lot of these big financial services companies also have retail divisions that allow you to buy and sell stock online on their website. And just for more details on all the different financial analysts roles, you can go to my YouTube channel and search for the word financial analyst. And I created, as I showed you earlier in the call, a 4-minute Powtoons cartoon on all the different roles within investment banks, all the different financial analyst roles. And you can even take, if you want, my complete financial analyst course to learn more about that. Okay, next up is Akil is saying, in your complete MBA course, you mentioned about Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, paying himself with huge sums of stock options, and his investors let him do that. Can you explain that about that? Yeah. So the board can decide to agree with anything the CEO says if the CEO is doing a great job. And so what happens is what incentivizes employees to stay at a big company for years and years and years is not just their base salary, but also stock options. And you're usually given stock options that you can cash in or vest. They're vested after a couple of years, and you're given them every single year in many companies, which means it's tough for you to leave, because if you leave, you're leaving money on the table. You've got golden handcuffs. And by the same token, the CEO of a company can not only give shares or options to employees, but also to herself or himself. They just have to get approval from the board. And if the CEO is doing a great job and making a lot of money for investors and the board is pleased, then the board will bless that. Okay. All right, next question is from Akil, who's saying, what exactly is insider trading? Does it still happen? It probably still happens. It probably does, but less so now than in the past. And so insider trading is when you buy a stock based on information that you have that nobody else has, or very few people have. If you ever get information on a stock and you're not sure if you should know about it, don't transact in that stock, please. Or if you work at a big company involved with stocks, go to your compliance department and your boss and tell them that you heard something. And what will happen is that stock will be put on the restricted list for a while, meaning the firm you work for cannot transact in that stock for 30 or 60 days or however long it is. And the lawyers within that company will decide what to do. And you're a hero if you do that, because you're basically saving the reputation of the firm and yourself and other employees too. And a lot of people, they get greedy. There's a lot of greed on Wall Street. They kind of feel like they've established this great standard of living. Maybe they live on the Upper West Side and they have their kids in private schools, for example. They gotta, and I'm not justifying it all, but this is why it happens sometimes. They got to make payments on those private schools or their mortgage or whatever it is. And so they need to get a big bonus every year. And so sometimes people cheat. They cheat by transacting in stocks using insider information. It's against the law, obviously. And yes, you will go to jail if you do it. And so there's actually, I mentioned Upper West Side for a reason. There's this hedge fund called Galleon, which no longer exists, thank goodness. And there's a guy named Raj Rodman, who I've met before, and he's in jail. And Raj is in jail for insider trading. And I actually know people that worked for him. And what would happen is during the morning meetings before the stock market opened, Raj would ask the semiconductor analyst, for example, how's the quarter going on Intel? How's their business progressing this quarter? And the analyst would say something along the lines of, well, I checked with my contacts and it sounds like, I talked to them the other day, 2 days ago, the quarter's going well, so we should buy more stock. And then Raj interrupted, this is a true story, and said, no. How's the quarter going as of this morning? And so basically he's pushing his employees, or he used to before he went to jail and got arrested, into getting insider information and transacting on it, which is illegal, highly, highly illegal. And I actually have a friend that was involved with that as well. And what happened, and I went through the Goldman Sachs training program with him back in 2000. Really, really nice guy. And he called me a number of years ago and said, I'm in trouble with this whole galleon thing. And I need your help, Chris. And I said, of course. And I always help people when they need me. Always, always. I run towards people when they need help. And his name is Gotham. And this is all publicly disclosed. But he said, I need you to write a letter to the judge for me. And he cooperated with the FBI. And he didn't go to jail. And I wrote a nice letter for him based on when I knew him back in 2000. I didn't know him in between. But I would have written a letter for him anyway if I had known him in between. But that letter was actually publicly released. And everybody saw it years ago anyway. And I was very proud to stand by my friend. And so what he did was he actually, here's what happened. And I don't have all the details. His name is Gotham Shankar. And actually, I'm going to show you it right now. Okay, I'll go through this with you right now. I want to keep it real. So what happened was, and I'll show you when he was going to court here. So Gotham Shankar. So let's go here to images. Here it is here, yeah. So what happened was, this is actually a better image to look at here, yeah. So this is Gotham. Oh, he wasn't supposed to do that, and I'll tell you why. This is when he was going to court, and what you're supposed to do is never make eye contact with photographers. That's his lawyer there on that side. You're supposed to look down like that. Getty Images has an image of him. Really, really nice guy, and that's him going to court, and he went through hell because of this. But what happened was, the story was he worked, I think, at a hedge fund, and here it is here, and I'm in this article here, I think, yeah. And what happened was he was at a hedge fund, and he said it was there was let me go here, yeah. He said that he was having lunch and he had all his monitors in front of him and he's taking a million calls at the same time. And somebody called him with a piece of information and he passed on that piece of information to somebody else without even thinking about it. And the FBI were listening, and that was insider trading. He had insider information. And even Martha Stewart, America's sweetheart, Martha Stewart went to jail for this, for transacting on this. And what happened to Gotham, and let me go back here and show you, I want to show you myself in the media here, defending him. Not what he did, but him as a friend. So if you go here to ex-Goldman Sachs employee spared prison, and I think I'm in here. Let me search here. Search Haroun. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. Yeah. So here's what I wrote in that letter to the judge, and I was very proud and happy to stand by him. I wrote, Gotham and I were in the training program together at Goldman Sachs, said Chris Haroun, a former colleague. If I could summarize his character in 5 words, it would be as follows: ethical, kind, minimalist, selfless, and generous. And I believe that. And when I knew him, when I worked with him, at least at Goldman, I didn't know him in between. That's what he was to me. That's what he was to me. And he got caught up in this, and thank goodness he's okay now. He's okay now. And I'm proud that I helped him. But that was insider information. And I have another friend that got arrested, and he was in jail down in, and I've never done anything illegal, but again, when bad things happen to people, I run towards them. But he was in jail in a place called Taft, and I'm not going to name his name. He's out now. But it's at Taft Prison. It's 5 hours south of here. And I went to visit him. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Yeah, there it is, the Taft Correctional Institution. So I drove down a couple times to see him because nobody else would. And he got arrested for something he did before I met him. But he's a friend, and I stand by my friends. And so let's go look what it looks like. When you walk into it, it's a correctional facility. This is it here on the outside. And when you walk in, it was bizarre. I walked in right here, and this is kind of an older picture. I went in the front door, and it was like a kind of a low-end Ramada. And there were people sweeping, inmates sweeping, and they're wearing gray sweatshirts and jeans. And you're not allowed to wear those two things when you go there because they don't want to identify you with being a prisoner there. I walked in and met with my buddy there, and it was really, really sad. He's out now. but this is what it looks like. It's not like a maximum security prison like you see in the movies. But he was there for a couple of years. He's out now. But insider trading still happens. I'm sure of it. Obviously, I don't know about it, but I'm sure it happens all the time. It's whenever you have a big financial crisis and people are scammed, then government creates new regulations. So after the Depression, the government created the securities laws in 1933, which are still in effect today. And that's where it talks about insider trading. And after the year 2000, bubble 1.0, I guess, for internet, what happened was the government created something called Regulation FD, which stands for Fair Disclosure. And what that means is a company is not allowed to give any details on anything to just one or two investors. They have to give it to all investors at the same time. And this is awesome for you and I, because you and I as retail investors, we get the exact same access to information at the same time that the massive mutual funds and hedge funds do. And it's usually through Webcast or through sec.gov or the investor relations portion of a big company's website. It's amazing, Regulation FD. And that came out in 2002. Elliot Spitzer was the senator at the time before he got in trouble for something else. I'm not going there. But he created that. And then after 2008, which was another horrific financial bubble situation where we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working, the Obama administration and pre-Barra went after a lot of people that were convicted of insider information and put a lot of them away. And it just happens. What happens is governments crack down a lot, usually after a financial crisis, rightly so. But if you have more questions about insider information, please let me know. And I've published a couple of vlogs on this with much more details. But the bottom line is that if you ever hear anything you're not sure you're supposed to hear, I want you to obviously never transact on it. It's never worth it. And also, I want you to go and tell your boss and your compliance director or both. All right. And Kavanaugh is saying, do you have a book version of the MBA course? So he's referring to my entire MBA in one course on Udemy. I do. It's on Amazon, but don't buy it because it's included in the Udemy version of the course, the entire MBA in one course. And if the audio is not good on this, let me know, please. I'm trying a new setup here. Test. Yeah. But yeah, and at the end of each section, the 15 sections in the entire MBA course, there's one chapter from the book. The book is 15 chapters, so don't buy the book on Amazon, please. Okay, next up is Chris. You're so kind to walk us through everything. Thank you. This is fun, though. You're doing me a favor. This is fun. This is great. You're so kind to walk us through everything, despite all the things you've been going on. Love the attitude. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, Ernesto got it, and Rohit as well. And Siddharth, all three at the same time. Good. This is Picasso. You're right. My little bonhomme here. And I went to the Picasso Museum when I was in Barcelona, I guess a month or two ago. And this guy had a lot of great quotes. You know, he said, everything you can imagine is real, or every kid is born an artist, and the goal in life should be staying as a kid, remaining an artist your entire life. When you're younger, you're really creative, and then you start working for other people, and you join a big company, and corporate lobotomy sets in for some people, and you're just not as creative. You don't laugh as hard as you used to when you work for somebody else, or at least when you join a big company. And the trick is just to always be yourself. As Sting said, be yourself no matter what they say. Okay. And that's from a song called An Englishman in New York, which is a great song. All right, next up is Rohit is saying, what is your favorite fiction book? So I love rags to riches stories. I love stories of people that came from a very tough background. They're poor, smart, and hungry. And those are my favorite students to help as well. I love it. That's why I do this. It drives me. I love helping people. And so there's this author, Jeffrey Archer, who I love. I read every book of his and every book from Ken Follett. And so Jeffrey Archer wrote this book called Cain and Abel, and there's no biblical or religious connotation to it. It's just the name of the book. And it's about this dude who goes from rags to riches, and the odds are against him. There's another book he wrote called A Place Called Freedom. Actually, that was a Ken Follett book, which deals with people from Europe coming over to America and making it big, going from nothing to making it big. and another book actually by Ken Follett called Pillars of the Earth, which is like 1,200 pages. And it's all about building a massive cathedral in the United Kingdom over several hundred years, and it talks about the generations. I know it sounds boring, but the character development is awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So Jeffrey Archer first for me, and then Ken Follett. And I just don't have the patience to read an entire book anymore. I'll listen to an audiobook if I can, though. Yeah. All right. Oh, dude, he's here. Phil Germany. Phil Germany is saying, good morning, Chris. Thanks for the love. I really appreciate it. Education and learning is one of my passion. Thanks again. Thank you, Phil. And God bless you for doing this. And Wrigley, if you're still in the call, I'm going to pause and point to this. And let's make this the cover image this week for this webcast. So you're supposed to, if you ever do YouTube vlogs, at the end of your vlog, keep the video running and you do a couple poses. You know, one is smiling and pointing, that sort of thing. So this will be the cover for this week's edition. There we go. Excellent. Good job, Phil. Good job. And Philip, I really did mean it when I read your dedication. I absolutely love it. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. Thank you. Thank you. And you are one of my many super students. And everybody on this call has got to write a book. And I've explained how to do it before. If you have more questions on how to do it, please do it. And good for you, Philip. That's awesome. Oh, I forgot. Every time I see your name, I always say this, and I have since the first webcast I've seen you on. If anyone here is from Germany, I want to thank you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer is just my favorite artist now. He makes the soundtracks for amazing movies. Amazing. Like The Crown, actually, on Netflix as well. Great soundtrack, great show. All right, next up is Rohit. Happy Teacher's Day, Chris. Oh, I didn't know it was Teacher's Day today. All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you. When one teaches, two learn. All right, next one is Chris, a new background. I love your passion, Chris. You bring education to another level. Thank you. Thank you. This is fun, man. I'm having fun. I'm trying to do something a little bit different now. I've got 3 cameras set up. I'll have 6 soon. And I'll have the, you guys can't see it, it's a little nutty, but I've got a bunch of cameras up here as part of my video production masterclass course. I'm unboxing over 100 products. Yes, or re-unboxing. I kept all the boxes. So, and then for the MBA degree, back here, you can't see it, but up top, I've got a bunch of different paper rolls I can pull down any point in time. Probably couldn't hear me well when I was away, sorry, from this microphone. But we're going to make it dynamic as well. I've got a treadmill, as some of you know, and this is out there, but I have to try something different. I'm going to pull down my green screen during the MBA Degree Program, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to walk on the treadmill. It's just no bars in the treadmill, it's just the bottom part. And I'm going to walk between corporate headquarters as we analyze companies. So I'll say something along the lines of, okay, we're now at Apple's spaceship headquarters in Cupertino. The reason Steve Jobs was very successful is because of this, this, and this. And you'll notice that it's structured in such a way that natural light gets into every single room in that spaceship building. Let's now move on to Facebook's headquarters. So Facebook's headquarters, as you can tell right here, it kind of looks like It's a Small World after all from Walt Disneyland. They've got it's a little out of the way. Their headquarters here, but they've got their own village. They've created coffee shops, a tailor, etc., all right here. So you never want to leave work. And Facebook is really, and this is a true story actually. During the weekend, I was at a party at my buddy Scott Cochran's house. He's a senior executive at Splunk, great software company. And I met one of his buddies there, who's a very senior executive at WhatsApp, and he's worked at Facebook for years as well. And whenever I meet with somebody very successful, you know, what I always do is I ask them, you know, why are you successful and why is the person you work with very successful? And that's the crux for my book. Every time I met somebody successful, I asked them for advice, and I wrote a chapter about it. And I asked this guy, I said, why is Mark Zuckerberg so successful? And he told me, he said, the interesting thing about Zuck is that he is extraordinarily long-term focused. He doesn't care about making money today. He's very long-term focused. For example, with Instagram, they didn't really look at monetizing it for years. They didn't really care. Of course, they're looking at monetizing it now, I think, but they just focused on subscriber growth. And the same thing with WhatsApp. And a lot of you use WhatsApp, they're not really monetizing it that much yet. They're very long-term focused. They're long-term greedy, which is the best way to be when you're starting a company or investing in a company. Always think long-term. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. All right. And I'm going to have it set up for the MBA Degree Program as well. And I'm not going to make money on the MBA Degree thing. I'm just having a lot of fun nerding out. But what I'm doing is I've got it set up so that I have spreadsheets that are automatically updating in real time based on data that you all enter during the live classes as well, and a bunch of other cool dynamic stuff. I've also looked into, and this is out there. Hold on. I've been experimenting with this thing here and doing webcasts from this as another camera. I'm going to use it somehow. It'll be a surprise during the MBA Degree Program. But anyway, it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. Play with your drones now while they're still legal, because I think after a while there's so many restrictions on drones now. Like I used to go to any park I could use it. Now there's signs everywhere in a lot of areas. And if you're going to drone, by the way, make sure that you Google to see if you have to register. I had to register mine with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. It was a $5 fee, not that bad. But I think the laws are going to get a lot more strict on these things, and rightly so. Rightly so. But enjoy it while you can. All right. Oops. Akil is saying, how good are government bonds? Would you recommend investing in them? So you always have to do your own research, but what you got to do is you got to look at the credit rating or the bond rating agencies as well, like Moody's and S&P, and don't ever buy anything that's below A rated because it's higher risk. Yes, it has a higher return. They're called high yield bonds. They used to be called junk bonds, and that's how Las Vegas was built, actually, with junk bonds. High yield bonds are very risky, though. It's risky getting a hotel done in Vegas. It's risky buying high yield or junk bonds. And so if you're going to buy bonds, try to buy AAA bonds. I won't tell you which ones, but make sure they're AAA rated. And so if you're buying government bonds, for example, I do own some U.S.-based government bonds that are AAA rated. I usually own a bunch of TIPS, which stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities, which means that if inflation goes up, the value of the bond goes up as well, so you're protected. And sometimes I buy municipal bonds that are AAA rated or have a high rating, because you get a nice tax break on a lot of munis, which are also called municipal bonds. But always do your research. And if you invest in companies for bonds, please do even more research, because there is risk. If you buy IBM bonds, they're going to trade at a premium and get you a higher return than U.S. government bonds, because IBM is more risky. But IBM is probably a relatively low risk investment anyway. Okay. And Akil is saying, do you have any courses on Excel? I do. The course called the Complete Financial Analyst Training course. That course teaches you Excel from scratch as well for financial analysts. And it's a lot of fun as well. So I did that there. And I started actually, at the beginning of this year, I started working on the Complete Excel course. And I was working on it for a while, and I have a ton of books on VBA as well. And it was fun. I was going through it, and I thought, maybe I'll put that on the back burner for now. Partially because I already have a lot of Excel stuff that I teach in the Complete Financial Analyst course. Yeah, maybe I'll dust off those books one day and do it, because it's so much fun. It's so fun. All right. And Akil is saying, can you explain what does leverage mean? In terms of leverage, is it fine? Warren Buffett called leverage weapons of mass destruction. You mentioned in your MBA course too. Yeah. So leverage means investing money you don't have. Okay. And so there are some hedge funds that for every $1 you invest in that hedge fund, and every $1 they have $10 invested in the stock market. And the way they do that is they have a good credit rating, obviously. They got great relationships with their prime brokers, meaning the Wall Street firms that will lend them shares to short. And they also run beta and market neutral, which means they have an equal number of longs and shorts. And so if the market goes up a lot, they lose money on one side, but make money on the other side, and vice versa. But they lever up 10 to 1, which is ridiculously high. Leverage has gone down a lot now versus '08. And part of the reason we got into financial trouble and the weapons of mass destruction, as Mr. Buffett calls it, in '08 was because of leverage. And what happens is if you create a portfolio and you're a very smart investor and you're long the great companies and short the bad companies, well, sometimes what happens is the bad companies go up and the good companies go down. It just happens, right? You have these one-off months. And if you're levered up 10 to 1, you lose 10 times more money than you actually have. And you basically go belly up. Yeah. And a lot of hedge funds went belly up because of that in '08. So please don't use leverage ever, ever, ever. I used to use a lot of leverage when I was in my early 20s and when I was investing in the markets. A lot of leverage, right? Tons. And I did fine, whatever. But I did get a margin call once on my honeymoon in May of 2000, June of 2000, when I was in Hong Kong. I'll never forget, I went to a cyber cafe and I paid for my entire wedding on margin as well. That's how much risk I took. And I got married to Christine. No, it was actually June 3rd I got married to Christine. So it had to be in late June 2000. Yeah. So anyway, I was fine, but I got a margin call. Don't do leverage, please. Don't do leverage. And Phil Germany, and every time, Phil, I have to do this from now on. Whenever you ask a question, I'm just going to hold this up here, okay, on my shoulder. Okay. So Phil Germany, or right here, Phil Germany is saying, also, I'm working on a follow-up to my book. And since I took your business plan course, I'm working on a business plan. Thanks again. Thank you. Thank you as well. Appreciate that. Thanks. And again, from now on, dude, I'm going to always have this on my desk forever on this call. And for anybody that writes a book as well. So awesome. Super students. I'll have this right here on my desk, always. And whenever any of you write your own books as well, I will also have that book in my hand as well. How's that? All right. Next up is Rohit. And if I missed any questions in between, please let me know. And if you're just joining us on the call, if you live in the Bay Area, 20 minutes after the call ends today, we're all going to meet to grab a coffee if you want to come. It's where we're going to meet is actually in Millbrae at a place called Paris Baguette. And I had somebody in the call earlier that said it'll take them like an hour to get there. And I think they wrote that because they thought, okay, the call finishes, Chris goes there. But if I show up an hour later, he won't be there. If you tell me you're coming and you tell me what time you're coming to Paris Baguette, I will be there no matter what between now and midnight. Okay. I mean, after the call finishes and midnight. And I want to do that because I feel bad because earlier in the call, somebody mentioned they want to meet up and I think they're from out of town, but they're in the city. So I will stay until, but you got to let me know in this call that you're going to be there just so I can look for you there. Thanks. And you guys are all buying me a coffee. Okay. Like when the bill comes, I'm going to go like this. I have alligator hands. I can't find my wallet. Just kidding. I'll buy you guys coffee. How's that? Okay. All right. I was just checking to see if there's any issues with the call. All right. Next up is, hold on one second, guys. I got to scroll down to see if people are complaining about bandwidth or anything. One second, please. All right. Next question is, what should one do when one is lost in life? He does not know what is the first step. It happens with me for writing, the writer's block. So whenever you have writer's block or your heart is not into something, take a break. It's your brain telling you you need a break, and come back to it later. The worst thing you can do is study for an exam or do really important work or write a book when you're not in a peak mental state. So come back to it later. Take a break. You got to take at least one day off a week. And I was watching National Geographic years ago, and they analyzed this gazelle. And the gazelle was being chased by a lion. And the gazelle was really stressed out and running for its life. And so what happened was, from a cardiovascular perspective, the heart was pumping blood like crazy, and the body was focused on one thing: surviving. And when the body was focused on just surviving, the immune system shut down, and the gazelle aged. They somehow tested for that. I don't know how. And there's a bunch of health issues as well, and the reproductive system temporarily shut down. And what happens in life with us is we're not meant to feel that much stress in life unless we're fighting for our lives. And so what happens is, a lot of people, conceiving it's not as easy as you think. A lot of people, it takes them years to conceive, to have a child. And what happens sometimes with people is they're so stressed out they can't get pregnant as a couple. And they just say, let's just adopt. And they adopt a beautiful child, and adoption's a wonderful thing. And then what happens is, a couple months after adoption, they get pregnant naturally. And it's because they don't feel pressure. So the bottom line is that you need your breaks. Don't be the gazelle. Don't be the gazelle. You need to take at least one day off a week. It's been true since the beginning of time. Just to recharge this and this. If this doesn't work, this won't work as well. And another way I tend to get rid of writer's block and be more productive in business is I exercise. I'll go for a walk every day in the afternoon. Steve Jobs and Larry Ellison used to do it together and by themselves. And I'll also work on my elliptical trainer every day at 4 o'clock. I have used one here in my garage, a cheap one. And what happens is it makes me happier. I release endorphins, and life works better. If you don't treat this right, this won't work as well. All right. And Wrigley, if you're on the call, how's the bandwidth? It looks like it's a little shoddy right now. All right, hold on. Let me just do a test here with y'all here. Just doing a speed test, guy. Hold on one second. Okay, download is great. We care about upload. Upload speed's got to be at least 12 megabits per second. Yeah, we're fine. I don't know why there's buffering on YouTube right now. We're totally fine. And what you can see up here, it's saying here, see that red thing? It's saying that we are connected still, but connectivity is quite slow. So, all right, hopefully this is working for y'all. Okay, back to questions. Okay, so John is saying, how are hedge funds taxed? Well, they're taxed like any other organization, but it just depends on what entity you invested in. So when I had my hedge fund, I had what's called a master feeder structure. And basically what that means is I had an onshore account and an offshore account, which I set up in the British Virgin Islands. And so investors in the offshore probably didn't pay as much in taxes, if any. And investors in the onshore paid higher taxes. You never give tax advice to any of your investors, ever, ever, ever. Everybody is different. Everybody has different tax mandates. And so a lot of the money I took in from international investors, they invested in the British Virgin Islands. It was just cheaper for them that way, and it was a great tax shelter for them. It's kind of like the Cayman Islands, but cheaper and less prestigious. And so the way it usually works, though, is if you invest in a hedge fund, you get what's called a K-1, which is a tax document every year. And based on what the hedge fund sold and realized profits on or lost money on, you pay taxes based on that. And in most countries, governments, they actually incentivize you to be longer term focused. And what that means is this. In most countries, if you own a stock for more than a year and then you sell it at a profit, you pay less in taxes than if you owned a stock for less than a year and you sold it at a profit. Okay. And most governments encourage you to be longer term focused. And one of the big problems with hedge funds is that they transact so much that the tax burden is ridiculously high for investors in the onshore vehicle. So always be long-term focused if you can from a tax perspective too. All right, I've got to ask you guys, how is the video okay? And just let me know if you can hear me. Is the video and the audio okay? Let me know and I'll try and tweak it here. But if I ask you if you could please just type that right now, that'll help me out a lot. Thanks. Okay, next up is Rohit is saying, will there be guest lecturers in the new MBA program? If yes, whom can you expect? Yes, there will be. Who? I don't know yet, but you'll be impressed. It'll be great. Yeah, I'm located close to, I am in Silicon Valley, so we will have a lot of really cool people that are on this, that are joining us for the webcast. Okay, next up, in the complete MBA course, why do the side note modules sound a little bit different? Oh, interesting. Yeah. So what I did was I recorded those. So I recorded the course downstairs in the living room down here. And then the side notes, I recorded it upstairs because I put a green sheet up on the wall. That was my first foray into green screens. Wasn't that good? And I recorded that in my bedroom. And because it was my bedroom, which has very high ceilings, there was maybe slightly more of an echo. I did hire a company to audio enhance them, though. Yeah. It's interesting. No one's ever asked me that, though. Thank you. Next up, Akil is saying, can you explain in detail what is price to earnings ratios? How can I invest better by understanding the PE ratio of a company? Yeah. So what I recommend you do is to go to my vlog and do a search on PE, because I've vlogged a lot about this recently. The bottom line is a PE means for every $1 in earnings, how much are people going to pay for that $1? So if they pay 10 times that $1, then that's a PE of 10. And you can have a high PE if you're growing very fast, and vice versa as well. So give me 1 second, guys. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if there's issues here. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that. So bandwidth is suddenly bad. I don't understand why. I've got great access here. Okay. Sorry about this, guys. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Find side note. Okay. Okay, so next question is from Nasri. Nasri is saying, "Hi, Chris. How are you? I'm great, thank you." Nasri here from Singapore. Awesome. I love Singapore because I think you guys get a tax benefit to spend $500 every year on education, including online education. It's pretty cool. Okay, and you wrote here, upon completion of the MBA program, can we use the initial MBA by the name on name cards? So it's not going to be accredited. I don't want to deal with any government body to tell me what I can and cannot teach, but I don't see why not. I mean, you could mention MBA in the name of the school if you want to. Okay, Robin. Hey, Robin, how are you? It's been a while. Robin's saying, thanks for accepting me for the MBA. My pleasure. Thank you for applying. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Berlin. And you said last week you'll be in Berlin on the 10th of October. Yes. Yeah. So, and then you mentioned that there can be a live audience there. I will try to join you on that. How can we arrange that? Yeah. So a week before, during the call, let me know. And then what we'll do is I'll set it up. So maybe a week or two beforehand. I'm actually going to Germany a couple days earlier than that, so I can do the live webcast there. I can set everything up. So just let me know. Thank you. Melody in the house. How are you, Melody? I hope you're doing well as well. And then we got Joao, who's saying, hi, Chris, how's everything? Great, thank you. Loving the YouTube course. Thank you, I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun to put together. What's your digital storage setup like? Do you use cloud services or hard drives? Yeah, so in terms of digital storage, my webcasts, I just store it on YouTube. That's it. And I can download it from YouTube if I want to. And the way to download stuff from YouTube, I'll show you how to do it. Obviously, only download stuff you're supposed to download. Is I've got this application called 4K Video Downloader. And all you do is you copy the link in YouTube and you paste it into here and you download it. Okay. And so that's basically like this one here. This here was weekly webcast number 29. I downloaded it. It was a 6 gig download. It was 6 hours, whatever. So yeah, that's my digital storage. It's the best way to do it because YouTube keeps it really, really cheap as well to do. So, that's why now in terms of offline, and I'm so sorry about the bandwidth issues today, guys, but in terms of offline storage or more, I do use Dropbox a little bit, but not too much. For offline storage, I use these things, right? And this is called a Lassie drive. And it's very, very fast. It's a little bit pricey, but I use this because I do a lot of editing. So this is for live editing. And then I've got just really cheap backup Seagate drives for stuff I'm not using or that I want to back up. And never buy a backup drive or any drive that has the word backup in it if you want to use that data a lot, because backup drives are really, really slow. Yeah. All right. Hold on one second. I'm going to call Wrigley. Sorry, guys. Just calling Wrigley about the Hey man, how's the bandwidth?
I tuned off my.
No, it's cool. No, I'm just curious. You don't have to be on, but I was just wondering because it looks kind of slow. I just want to make sure it's fine. So I'll stay with you on the air while I'm going through questions. Check it out when you get a chance, and just send me a text, please. Is that okay?
Will do. Yeah,
Thanks, bye. Thanks, bye. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, bye. All right, that's just Wrigley, who's I asked him to provide some feedback on the call quality. All right. All right, next up, thank you, Kanal. Appreciate that. Melody is saying, question, how do you build trust in a team? One team member had to leave, and now we have a new team member. This person is friends with their last team, where they do a lot of gossip. Yeah, no, I got you. Which is something I don't like. What are some ways I can encourage while discouraging this kind of behavior I'm in? So what I recommend, Melody, is to do team building events. And you can take my course called How to Motivate Employees. And this will tell you a lot about, and you get the book for free in that course as well, but it'll tell you how to bond better with your team members and how to improve communication. And as part of this, you can actually create, if you want, in one of these team building meetings, 10 principles to live by at work. And one of those principles can cover gossiping, that sort of thing as well, if you want. And it can be part of a fun team-based exercise, which you'll learn about in a How to Motivate Employees book. Okay. Alok is saying, Happy Teacher's Day, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Next up is Yusuf is saying, do you have a course that teaches how to pick growth companies? I do. It's called the Complete Financial Analyst course. I have a really good friend whose dad, my buddy Sohail growing up, his dad's name was Yusuf Bajwa. And he told me that Yusuf is Joseph. All right. And Maz is saying, hi, Chris. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Quick question. Is there a tax incentive buying a truck in America? It all depends. If you own a company that uses the truck mainly for that purpose, then likely, but make sure to talk to an accountant first, please. I'm not up to speed on that. Thanks. All right, Miles is saying, hi, Chris. How are you doing? Quick question. I just read that one. Sorry. Nick from the country of Georgia is saying, hi, Chris. How are you? Congrats on 20,000 subs on YouTube. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Okay. So I got a message from Wrigley. Here's what he's done. The quality of the call is better for him. And he just adjusted it to 480p. You can do that. Just click that little gear icon in the corner and adjust to 480p instead of 1440 if you want. Wrigley, did you hear what I just said there about the adjusting the gear? Just yes or no here. Just that way I'll know if this is working. Thanks, dude. Okay. All right, next up is Punit, who said, how would you say on future jobs in financial investment banking, is artificial intelligence going to eat a major chunk of jobs? So yeah, I published a bunch of vlogs on this. So do a search on my YouTube vlog for artificial intelligence and financial analysts. I don't think that investment banking is going to be that hit though, because I think that investment banking is a relationship oriented business. You know, you got to schmooze with a lot of CEOs and know the right people in order to get, business done. And I don't think you can outsource to computers relationships. So any sales-oriented or relationship-oriented job, I'm not worried about AI taking any share from that, or cannibalizing any share. All right. Next up is Pune, who's saying, okay. So Nick is saying, how big is the first class MBA? Thank you for accepting me. Thank you, and I appreciate it. So we're trying to keep it at around 100. We're having issues with that, though, because we've received a gazillion applications, And if you haven't already applied, if anybody on this call is thinking of applying, I encourage you not to apply. You can apply next year when we do our next tranche of it. Thanks. Okay, next up, Rohit, will there be one-on-one calls with you in the new MBA? Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be one-on-one office hours. Absolutely. And the way we're going to set it up is Wrigley is setting it up using something called Calendly. Hold on a second. Let me ask him if the call's good. Yeah, and so what's going to happen is I'll have a website plug in on my website using Calendly. So you can go on and schedule, 15-minute or half-hour calls one-on-one with me, and we can do Skype calls as well. Yeah. All right. Next up is Kurt. Kurt, last week at the beginning of the call, you asked me about the M50 and if you should unbox it as part of your vlogs. So you wrote here, I did an unboxing of my M50 on my iPhone. My son and I both agree it was a little cringy. I'll keep practicing. Any tips on structuring the script, talking points? Yeah. So usually before I start a vlog, I usually think of a couple talking points, but you don't want to make it sound too scripted. Otherwise it sounds rehearsed and, you sound like Data from Star Trek. I don't know if anybody gets that reference, but not emotional, not really into it. So you can script a couple things if you want, but just go in knowing that you'll talk about 2 or 3 different bullet points. And if you're flustered, then you can use transition words, which I teach in my complete job course like this. In terms of moving on to, lastly, the bottom line is this. So go in knowing that you're going to talk about 2 or 3 bullet points, and then use those transition words, and then wrap it up by saying the bottom line is this if you're rambling like I am right now. All right, hold on a second. All right, next up is Akil, who is saying, what are the other platforms you're on other than Udemy? Yeah, so I'm on Stack Commerce, and Stack Commerce basically takes your courses and puts them on other news websites. It looks like it's branded by that company, not Stack. It's kind of like a generic engine. And I'm also Amazon, which I'll never do again. Amazon, the issue with Amazon is they don't promote any of your content. When they first called me, I was excited. They said, we want to launch teaching online and we want to profile you. And I was excited. Wow, Amazon, big company. But they don't market anything. I still make money from it, but it's not amazing. Okay. All right. Next up what do you think about Nokia's future? Sorry, Nokia. When I used to work at Goldman, one of the traders named John Sawtell from the London office used to call it Nokia. The English accent sounds great, though. So I think that once a technology company starts to become a little bit less relevant, it's game over. And turnarounds don't work in technology, maybe one every decade if the founder comes back or something happens. So I'm skeptical. I don't believe in turnarounds in tech. I don't. 99.9% of the time, they don't work. That's why I never buy a tech stock just because it's cheap. All right, Siddharth is saying, hi, Chris. I always have a plan for a goal, but when it comes to execution, I fail. So please, can you tell me how to grab the opportunity when it comes? So what I recommend doing is having, hold on one second. Just getting feedback from Wrigley here on the quality of the call. So when I come up with a big goal, sometimes I break it down into mini goals. And I'll kind of have little milestones along the way. And that way you don't feel as overwhelmed. But you got to vocalize your goal. You got to tell people, because that puts pressure on you in a good way. And I say it with love in my heart. It pressures you to actually get it done. Okay, hold on. All right. Thank you. JR in the house. Thank you very much for that. Happy Teacher's Day, Chris. Thank you. Chris, I would love to know more about setting up an in-home studio. Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a course coming out by the end of this month called Video Production Masterclass, the complete video course. And I walk you through the entire studio and how I set it up as well. If you have specific questions, I could tell you right now. You don't have to buy expensive stuff. You know, you can basically, when you're getting started, here's what I did. I went to Amazon and I bought Westcott. I bought lights called Westcott Basics. It was like $100, $150 for just 2 lights. And then what I did was I got an old lamp and I threw it behind me so it looked like there's a 3D pop, and that's it. And you can make one side a little bit brighter than the other side if you want kind of a dramatic effect. I do that sometimes. In terms of the backdrop here, I went to a hardware store and I bought it. That's just cardboard. And you can even buy a sheet and drape it down. I used to have a white sheet in the background for a couple of years. That's how you set up a studio. And if you have echo, what you can do is put more furniture in the room. Like, you know, when you go to an open house and you're looking to rent an apartment or a house or buy one, there's echo if the room is empty. But when you put furniture in it, the echo goes down. So you can put furniture in the room, or you can put blankets on the wall, or you can buy special curtains that get rid of sound. So right here, I got these from Amazon. These block out not just the lights. That's what I see outside. Not just the light, but also the noise. And they're black on this side too. So these are great. These are great at noise canceling. I don't know if you heard anything I said. I was away from the microphone. But you can get products like that from Amazon. They're not that pricey either. And that will make the sound improve a lot as well in your room. Or you can buy a special foam to stick on the walls and on the ceiling, which I've done. Yeah. And if you want, you can do a search on my vlog on how to soundproof a room. And I show you some of the stuff I put up on the wall. And then Peter is saying, hi, Chris. I'm in South Florida. I hope you're all right, man. Hope you're all right with the hurricane and stuff. Christine's parents, they're in Delray Beach, and they slept in the closet, actually, the past couple of nights, just because it reinforces the house if, God forbid, something happens. But I hope you're doing all right, man. Okay, so you're right. I'm in South Florida. I hope all is well. How's the MBA class different from the entire MBA course? So the entire MBA course is just a very, very high-level overview of business. We go into much more detail. We have case studies, and we basically just teach you everything that you've never been taught before that you need to do to be successful in business. We're going to help you create an amazing LinkedIn profile and resume from scratch. I'm going to teach you how to present. There's going to be one-on-one coaching. We're going to analyze companies and just do a lot of case studies. So it's going to go much, much deeper than the entire MBA 1 course. And then Rohit saying, what type of exercises and assignments does the MBA program have roughly? Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of quizzes. There's also going to be case studies. There's going to be group projects as well, and individual projects as well. And I'm not going to, have honors or whatever it is. It's pass fail. That's how it's going to work. Yeah. I think that's better too, because from a group project perspective, it's just better pass fail. Yeah. All right. John is saying, I got in. Awesome day. Awesome, man. Glad to have you. I hope to meet you one day. So John is based in Rochester. John is saying, I got in. Awesome day. Will there be any sort of payment plan or just one straight shot of $499? So I think it's going to be one straight shot, probably towards the end of this month. And for anybody that got in, if you're having second thoughts and you don't want to do it anymore, just let us know as soon as possible, please, because there is a very, very big wait list. Thank you. Thank you. And Imam is saying, hi, Chris. Good morning. Thanks for your time. Good morning to you too. And Akil is saying, okay. Give me, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I promise you. I got to text Wrigley here. See about the sound. Is anything skipping, or is it good enough? All right. All right. So Akil is saying, sorry, sir, I didn't hear properly with the one pager. Where can I find the one page stock template? It's in my course called the Complete Financial Analyst course, and on Udemy. Next up is Jose, who's saying, is it worth it to pay the membership fee that a local chamber of commerce asks for entry-level membership, $400 where I live? What has been your experience or added value with such organizations? I've never paid a membership fee for something like that. I just go to meetings for free. And the way to do that is you can go to meetup.com, and I'll show you that. And this is a great way to network for free. So you go to Meetup. We'll fix it. Yeah. And so what you do is you just enter in your city name and what you want to meet up or what you want to discuss. And there's free meetings for everything. It's pretty cool. Works in every country in the world, I think. All right. All right, next one. We've got, hi, Chris. Very inspiring to listen to you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Greetings from India. I'm doing your entire MBA in 1 course. Thank you. My question is, do big companies like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, considering offering jobs to candidates who are not from reputable MBA colleges, universities like Stanford or Harvard Business School? Absolutely, man. And they all, for the most part, will hire people that don't have a university degree. It's great. And even companies like IBM and Bank of America and Wells Fargo, all these companies hire people that don't have university degrees. Yeah. And if you want to get into those companies, what you can do is just network like crazy. You can get a job there if you read this book and apply the principles. I promise you. You can get that from my website for free. Yeah. And then question is copywriting a high income skill? I think it depends. I don't think it's that high, but you can always go to glassdoor.com and search up to see what people are paying for copywriting hires. And then Rohit said, but like anything else, if you're the absolute best in the industry at whatever it is you do, copywriting, whatever it is, then yeah, the market will pay top dollar. Okay. Rohit is saying, if you had $100 billion, hypothetically, what would you recession eventually? And we'll also be in a bull market eventually. I don't know. I tend to look out very long term, and I tend to back up the truck when everyone else is selling. That's what I do. So, get your watch list ready for stocks you want to buy. And when you see them pull back, and understand that if they are a broken stock and not a broken company, then that's when you start buying. Buying stocks in a recession is awesome because not many other people are buying, and you can get a lot of companies on sale. All right, and I'm going to do one more check with Wrigley. All right, sorry about the buffering, guys. All right, next one is, with my broker, sometime the trade will not be executed at the end of the trading hours, or it would be canceled. Yeah, so it sounds like you probably enter in a lot of limit orders. If you want, you can enter in market orders if it's a liquid stock or option security, whatever it is you transact in. And the probability of it getting filled is higher. Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got, hi, Chris. This is Carter. Hey, Carter, how are you? First time I've seen you on the call. Welcome. I hope you join us again. Thank you for accepting me to the Haroun Education Ventures MBA Degree Program. My pleasure. I didn't graduate my MBA program in college because I failed the quantitative method class. If you have that subject in the Ventures MBA program, can you teach the class in a more attractive, interactive way? Thanks. Yeah, no problem at all. And so the way I teach, and you and I have that in common because I got a D in accounting when I took it in undergraduate university at McGill University. And I got a D because I was memorizing stuff instead of understanding and enjoying it. So when I teach you finance and accounting, I'm going to teach it in such a way that you will enjoy it and you will remember it forever. Otherwise, you get your money back. And if you want, just before you start the MBA degree program, I recommend actually taking my course called Introduction to Finance, Accounting, Valuation, and Modeling. It's a 4.5-hour course on Udemy. You can take it there, and that will help you understand the basics of accounting and finance. Yeah, and we're not going to do ridiculously deep dives in accounting or finance. Of course, we'll cover those topics, but we're not going to do insanely deep dives into accounting. I'm just going to teach you stuff you need to know. And Dante in the house. Hey, Dante from Ottawa is saying, when is the meet and greet in Canada? Just wondering what's going to be the structure of MBA program, other live lesson. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Dante, for asking that. So I did a meet and greet when I was there. I actually met with Andrew Dupree, you mean Dupree. We met at University of Toronto in Mississauga. And so when I come up there again next summer, we'll do it again. Should be fun. I come to Canada every summer, which is fun. Yeah. And you're also asking, will there be live lessons? Yeah, there'll be live lessons, and there'll also be replays as well in case you missed the lesson. And then you wrote, what's the structure of the MBA class? We're going to cover all major concepts in business and do a lot of case studies as well. And if you're not happy within the first 30 days, you can always get a refund. But it will be well worth your time and effort. You'll see. There'll be a lot of case studies too. We're going to study real business problems instead of theoretical stuff that we can't retain anyway. And in the first month or so, what we're going to do is we're going to help you learn how to sell better, present better, and then most importantly, how to create a perfect resume and LinkedIn profile. And we're going to have you create it, and then we're going to help you perfect it. And then, oh, wow. Thank you very much. Shantanu saying, hello, Chris. Happy Teacher's Day. Appreciate it. Zach is in the house. Excellent. Hi, Zach. A DJ is saying video looks good, but it keeps pausing and buffering for me. In and out with the video and audio. Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Sorry about that. And then Dat Tran, who's in Vancouver, but originally from Vietnam. I think you're on exchange there in Canada, is saying, hi, Chris. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm great, thanks. I'm great. Life is good. Life is good. Thank you. And Michelle is saying, hey, Chris, do you think a recession is coming soon? I do. Only because we've been in a decent market for a while, and economic cycles are always like this. No matter what anybody says, if they say this time is different, they're wrong. It's never different. I don't know exactly when. I don't worry about it. I'm a long-term investor. So, I actually look forward to it sometimes because that way I can buy stocks on sale. All right. And then you're also saying, can I get a better job if I get my MBA, or what can I do to work my way into the business marketing field? So what I recommend doing is, if you want to get a better job, read this book cover to cover, Michelle. You can go to my website and get it for free, and just network like crazy. I don't think you have to have a degree from a fancy school. to be successful in life. I just think you have to understand that relationships are always more important than product knowledge. And so you got to network a lot. Yeah. All right. And we've got Ecclesia from the United Kingdom saying, "Hi, Chris. How are you?" I'm great. Thank you. Welcome. Zach is saying, "Hey, Chris. Hope you're doing great. Thank you. What is the must-have skill for an entrepreneur?" Just the ability to network. I mean, a great in sales, a great entrepreneur and a great CEO and a great founder all have one thing in common. They can sell and they can network a lot. So just brush up on your networking skills. You can check out my book if you want to. And then just be comfortable accepting rejection. And know that you're gonna fail over and over and over again, but eventually you're gonna be really, really successful. You know, it all comes down to how resilient you are and how little you care what other people think of you. I'm not saying be abrasive in any way, but just be comfortable with failure. You're going to fail a lot in order to succeed. Okay, great. Oh, thanks. Okay, so David is saying what he did was he went to 360p instead of 480 or 720 or 1080 or 1440. He went to 360p within the settings in YouTube, and there's no lag now. Oh, lag came back. He said, "No, it sucks." Okay, next up is Zach is saying, all right, so Zach is saying, this lag is driving me nuts. Zach is saying, how is Elizabeth Holmes, who's the founder of Theranos, how does she manage to raise that amount of money without showing anything? Just talk and selling vision. Yeah. So there's a great documentary of hers I watched either on HBO or Showtime. I can't remember. You can probably get it online now. Which talks about it. And she just lied a lot. And she withheld a lot of information, and she tried to justify a lot of the lies or unethical activity by thinking like Thomas Edison. Because Thomas Edison, sometimes he said he was going to deliver a product that didn't exist, and then he delivered it. But that doesn't really justify what she did. But she just misled a lot of people and employees as well. Yeah, it was really unfortunate. It really tarnished the biotech industry temporarily here in the Bay Area. But if you get a chance, watch that business documentary. It's fantastic. Yeah. All right, next up is Kwang, who's saying, get paid with dividend. Is that I have to own the stock before the ex-dividend date? Yes. Yeah. So if you buy a stock, sometimes you'll see a company does a big one-time special dividend of like 10 or 20%. And what happens is when it goes ex-dividend, meaning the day after shareholders get the dividend, the stock goes down 10 or 20%, right? It's priced in. But no, in order to get a dividend, you got to own it before the dividend is paid. Yeah. All right. And then RVC is saying, hey, Chris, sorry, I've been missing in action. It's always good to have you back. I did a little experimenting during the summer holidays to learn what it is like being a business owner making wedding cakes. I learned so much. I made 5 cakes in August. That is awesome. Awesome. And you got 4 more comments here. I'll go through all of them. That's great though. Good for you. It's awesome. Sounds like a fun gig. Then you wrote, to market, I placed an ad on Craigslist offering to make complimentary custom wedding cakes for free to build a portfolio. Wedding cakes usually cost between $400 and $1,000. Wow, I didn't realize that. When I got married in Mississauga, we rented a place called Roma's Place, and they provided the cake there. Yeah. And then you wrote, I learned to bake and decorate by watching YouTube. It's very cool. I spent $2,000 buying baking equipment and ingredients. The most challenging aspect was how much time and sweat the entire process took. And then you wrote, I learned a lot about human nature. People who look for freebies probably won't pay $500 for a 3-tiered cake with dozens of handmade edible flowers. They just appreciate it, though. They were appreciative, though. Yeah. And then you wrote 5 out of 5. So I think you're probably still typing the next one. And I'll wait till you type number 5 out of 5 before responding to this. But good for you for starting something. And I'm sure you're learning a lot. And if you want, you can, take my complete business plan course and refine your wedding cake business as well, if you want to. It might help you with your go-to-market strategy. And maybe you can teach people how to bake cakes as well. And there's this woman named Teresa Greenway on Udemy, and she teaches people how to bake bread. So check out her courses. Maybe you can do something like that for cakes. It's fun. All right, and let me scroll back up here. And I'm so sorry, everybody, for the lag. I better type that. Hold on. Let me type that in. People will probably see if I type it. Okay. So question is, what does it mean when the forward dividend yield is 6.8%? Is this the rate for the annual or quarterly payments? No, it's always annual. It's always listed annually. Always. Yeah. So that means that the dividend of $1.24, which is 6.8% of the value of the company, that's annually. So almost, or quarterly. So what you do is you take $1.24 and divide it by 4, and that's roughly the quarterly dividend you should expect to get. Yeah. And you're welcome, Peter. Thank you. And Michael is saying your internet is super fast compared to the UK. And then Nick is saying, Chris, about big companies, they don't look at university degrees, but what they are looking for, before the interviews. So